personally thank you guys for all the work you guys have done. You have been phenomenal and we just appreciate all you've done. I don't want to make a spectacle in the public meeting, but you with that to my friend Jeff and Laura, thank you.
Thank you. For many, many, many good years.
Thank you.
Thank you for not retiring until I was gone.
Oh, thank you.
So you guys know, we had a request by one of the applicants. They have a meeting with Ogden City conflicting with this, so they asked if their item could be on the agenda. And so Bryce, you have a time deadline, 6:30. So, if it's okay with everyone, and I guess the procedure is we will seek a motion to do this officially when the meeting opens, but the first item, which is the Froerer project, we will hear that one last. The second item, which is 10.66 acres, 110 units, we will hear that one third. The first one we'll hear is the 28.65 acres requesting an upzone. That one we will hear first, and then the parking lot item we would hear second, if that works for everyone.
And just so you know, the third item, an attorney in my office is.
I saw that letter.
Yeah, so I would be recused from this.
Dana is in your office?
It's in my office and he's representing. Is he representing?
He's representing a water district.
Yeah, even.
Wait, Dana, no, Zane is representing. Even
A
that.
company with closing number 2.
Okay, got it. All right,
So I would be recused from
got it.
the third item.
Okay. Okay,
But you're okay
I'm okay doing 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
We'll see how.
so now the third one or the. Where's Dana? Which one is Dana on?
You do this very well. No.
Okay, number 2, yeah. Okay.
So just so I'm clear, at one point, well, let's have glasses to make it more clear. 1.3 will be first
Yes,
and 1.4
second,
the second, and then 1.2 and then 1.1.
correct. But that makes sense, and if that accommodates the request that we had from the applicant, better.
Yeah, I think it does, because they had a meeting, they said it with Ogden City that they weren't able to. If they were afraid they wouldn't be here right on time for their item, so. Charlie is coming down, but maybe we can have Tammy explain her item.
Sure.
Which now you have to sit through the whole meeting.
Could you move
That's
that?
okay, I don't mind. This is a request from Froerer Family Investments. They own a 19.32 acre parcel of land in the AB3 zone. They are looking for a recommendation of approval for a development agreement to allow them to really to preserve their development rights, which are 6 in this case, and to allow for some extended timelines with regards to development. That's what they're asking for. What they're offering is a 60-foot right of way in between a couple of their proposed lots to the east to allow for eventual connectivity as development occurs further east. That's pretty much it.
Shoot my hat on that.
Mhm.
I know the property pretty well. Is there a reason that we're not doing 3 acre, actual 3 acres? There's a couple of them that are 2 point something, just smaller than 3. Is that?
So there's a couple of ways they could do this. They could do the layout that's in the staff report. They could do that under a lot average subdivision. In fact, I think the average of the widths exceeded the 150 feet. And the average areas at the time were over 3 acres. I think it was 3.12 acres. So they could do that under current ordinance. Their updated site plan, which I'll show you in the meeting tonight, that shows the actual right of way, pulls all of these lots to at least 3 acres, some of them a little bit more. So they all meet or exceed the minimum areas and widths for the zone.
Even the one with the right of way, that lot 4, that had right of way.
Uh-huh. That's what they're showing on their plan. So they could plat this tomorrow with all of the appropriate approvals.
They want to delay actually doing it for.
Yeah, I think their main concern is to make sure that they have the ability to develop it this way. And then the extension or the timeline of 10 years, their DA actually requests that they have the ability to extend it for 5 years beyond that, up to 3 times if they choose.
This is very similar to what we did for Jeff's property
Mhm.
over on 4100. And by the way, that was approved today. And that was approved for 30 years. On that.
So just legally. Cortland, sorry to interrupt your dinner.
Mhm.
Feel free to talk with your mouth full. It's okay. As long as you don't spit at me. It's 10. Okay. So if we were to deny this and we just approved one that was similar, what does that do to us legally?
Very, very little chance of any type of successful appeal if somebody challenged it. It's. You have very broad discretion. The county commission has very broad discretion because it's a legislative item.
Mhm.
No two situations, are likely to be exactly the same.
Okay,
You look at each one independently, you evaluate it, you determine whether or not
so
there
it's
are.
not like an administrative issue.
No, whether or not there are reasons to make a different decision.
Okay.
And you decide accordingly.
So you just brought that up just as a reference point.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. And I want you to be aware too that that did get approved today.
Okay,
One other question,
Sure.
that 60-foot right of way, is that running east-west?
It is. From 7900 east.
So what lots will,
Isn't that running north-south?
so 7900 runs north-south?
7900.
Oh, yeah,
South.
you're right. Yep.
They're jogging it a little bit north to avoid a residence immediately east. This would go between their proposed lots 4 and 5.
That's pure speculation that a road would ever do it.
I was gonna say,
There's just a farmland back there. That's-
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Charlie, with that flurry of public comments, did you receive those? I think you must have sent me in the last few hours, dozen.
I've been doing it for about the last 3.5 hours, also responding to some of them, so it was quite a bit that came in. Some of them came in on Sunday and I wasn't able to get them out to you guys until today, but most of them came in earlier today, if not late last night.
Probably the most I've seen in the last 3 years. Was there anything? I mean, I think I read them all, but was there anything in there unique or that jumped out or that was?
No, I think the community seems to pretty well understand the proposals from what I can see in those comments. You had a little bit of support for the Powder Mountain project, a lot of not support requests for it to be denied for the Powder Mountain project. I didn't see a ton of support for the FR3 rezone, the condominium or townhome project. Other than from just a couple of people, and then for the Boren property, I don't think that we received any support from anyone that wasn't party to the app. As far as implementation or impacts go, I think the biggest issue around the board for any development is going to be access to water and sewer. The Boren property, they're talking about sewer and wells. They're pretty close to an existing community well, but we don't have that well's source water drinking protection plan zones yet, so we don't know exactly.
You said sewer and well, it would be septic.
Septic, sorry, excuse me, thank you, septic and wells. And then over on the FR3 rezone request, they would have to connect to a community sewer system and they would have to connect to a community water system.
Right.
They could potentially create their own well, but I think you've got some challenges with existing wells that are in the area and the proximity to them. So even if that project was approved, development agreement and rezone and all that, they've got a pretty big uphill battle to try and find access to sewer and water.
There was a letter from a law firm already in there.
Yeah, two law firms, one from Wolf Creek
Yeah.
District and one from Eden Waterworks.
Suggesting a well on that site would potentially diminish others' existing well
Yeah.
capacity. And on the, back to the 28.65 acres, they're looking for an upzone. A straight upzone, I guess, is what it looks like to me.
The Powder Mountain property?
No, the 28, I'm sorry, yeah, they want to go to A1.
Yeah, okay, yep.
So they're looking for a straight upzone.
Yeah.
Has a upzone ever been granted or recently granted in the valley?
Not in recent memory, since we did the 2016 general plan. To my knowledge, we haven't increased the net overall density of the valley, based zoning. So that's just a big staple in the general plan. I know when the general plan was adopted, there were a lot of people who were a little bit afraid that the county commissioners wouldn't honor that. But to date, I'm not aware of anything that increased the overall zoning rights that are up there.
And not in my memory, especially not with any concept of where they would get TDRs from.
Can you explain to me, sorry, what you mean by upzone?
So taking it from so upping the density allowed on that particular, so going from requiring 3 acres. To this one, what are they looking at in it?
Just grants more density.
1 acre.
1 acre.
40,000 square feet is what the
Yeah.
A1 zone is.
So they're upping the allowed residential units on particular site.
And that's the 1.2, the third item.
And
Right?
that will be the third item.
That's the Bourne rezone.
Sorry, that will be the first item here. It's 1.3, so that'll be the first item. 28.65 acres.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
And am I correct? They don't have anything on there for their TDRs?
Yeah, they're not proposing anything to you. I did
Yeah.
ask the question. They said they're just looking for the upzone.
Okay, then.
I did let them know that I would recommend denial without TDRs and they acknowledged that.
Okay.
You guys have my recommendation.
And that not being a receiving zone. TDRs under the current ordinance would not be transferable to that.
Right. If
Yeah.
the community or county commissioner or whoever was inclined to approve it based on them finding transferable development rights, what we would do is we would adopt an ordinance with the development agreement, and that ordinance would essentially be an isolated standalone thing that says we agree that this property right here is a receiving area. And that's the same thing that would need to happen for the FR3 rezone as well, for them to be a receiving area.
But that's not part of what we're considering today.
No, for the FR3 upzone, yes, but for the Boren, the
Because,
A1 upzone, no.
because the other one has a development agreement attached to this one.
Yeah, development agreement with conditions including, right now, the proposed development agreement doesn't say anything about TDRs, but they've committed to making that change before the commission looks at.
A couple of meetings ago, we had Ogden City here, the one that went till late. That they wanted to claim they had 800 development rights. Is that the kind of development right that these people would need to find in theory?
It might be, in theory,
If that got approved.
right.
But it wasn't.
Well, it hasn't went to the
Hasn't.
county commission yet.
But that one, Charlie, that maybe I'm using the wrong term, but that one, the development rights are only transferable to a recreation zone.
As of right now, as of what they had proposed, they would only be allowed to transfer to the DRR1 zone. The county commissioners have had discussions with them. They've said that, they're not. Again, it's all just discussions, no decisions have been made, so don't hold them or me to it. But they said they're not inclined to go out of their way to say, yeah, let's allow those to be stirred around inside of the new city. But they have let them know that they'd be inclined to allow it to happen, the transfer to go up to the DRR1 zones for the resorts. So, but still some discussions in play for that. We'll see something, I'm assuming, on the county commission agenda within the next couple of weeks.
This probably does not matter, right? But if they were to take from that area and keep the valley floor, the whole purpose of the TDRs were to keep the valley floor as rural as possible and put density up at the resorts. However, we do have the areas where we have the centers. And so maybe giving them the density rights and still keeping the other part of the valley floor. So, but that's not gonna be for us to decide here, and that's not gonna be the county commission that decides, that's gonna be something for the new city
Yeah.
to decide.
Correct. That, so far, that's what the county commissioners have
Yeah,
said.
yeah, and that's what it is, but it does make sense to do that. If TDRs are even swept over at this point, I don't even know if that's gonna happen.
The big question with the FR3, the condominium project or the townhome project is, are they close enough to a village center? So the general plan says a couple of things. It says significant development should happen inside of those village centers. It doesn't say what the polygon or what the boundary of a village center is. We don't have any explicit definitive lines, but it does say that generally speaking, it should be something that allows for no more than a quarter-mile travel distance. And so on the general plan, we just drew quarter-mile circles. This project is about a half-mile from the center of one of those circles, so about a quarter-mile outside of one of those village areas. But the general plan also says in the housing side that if development is going to occur and it's not inside of the villages, then it's best that it be on the periphery of those villages to provide the housing density necessary to support the potential commercial amenities of those villages. So you've got it's a policy question for you guys to answer tonight. Is this close enough to a village? And if it's not, if it's a little bit further on outside, it may be in a transitional zone where it should be lower density and not condos. So,
And this isn't,
Think
this is
about it.
all market rate stuff, right?
yes. Yep.
They haven't talked to you at all about anything related to any adjustments to that?
No, there's a weird rumor that's going around. I think somebody just got confused because they saw the 3 items on the agenda. A weird rumor going around that a developer that's already in the community is going to be building moderate income housing or affordable housing or worker housing on the townhome project for the Powder Mountain Park and Ride. And to my knowledge, that's not true. I'd be surprised if it is true. I just think somebody took all 3 of these items and meshed them into one rumor.
And created a story?
But
That could not happen.
I've heard that from a few different sources, and I have no indication that that's accurate. These are all market rate.
So for a project like this to be considered for people who are gonna work in new restaurants or businesses in the commercial center, it would in all likelihood have to be some sort of a modified income housing, which this is not.
Right.
Okay.
Deed restriction,
Yeah.
I mean, it would take some pretty big oversight requirements, either on behalf of the city, the county, the housing authority, whoever it is that's going to enforce that deed restriction, if we were to do something like that.
Any other clarifications on any of this that we need before the meeting?
Any questions about the parking lot, other than what we already discussed?
Hey, was there a discussion? I'm not sure this is an appropriate time to do this, but it seems to me that. I mean, this has been a long time coming. Right? I mean,
That's
right? Kevin's been, been around forever. So where we knew that it was gonna have to move,
What's gonna have to?
the parking lot for Summit, for
What do you
Powder
mean?
Mountain.
The parking lot has to move.
Are we talking about Powder Mountain?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, so. It seems to me, and especially with the new road, that it might be smarter to do something on 12th Street or on Mountain Green side and have that mode of, I mean, we could drop off at Powder, we drop off at Basin, you know, whatever they want to do. But it seems to me like having everyone drive into the valley creates more congestion. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, it's better than going all the way up the mountain. Because everyone's worried that everyone's gonna die on that road. And they're not wrong that it's dangerous, but you know, evidence doesn't necessarily support that there's more accidents there than anywhere else.
Right.
People like to think there is, but there is no evidence of that. So have we talked about that? Not doing that?
I think it's a really good question to ask the applicant. We have had discussions and they've given us an explanation. I think I'd rather you guys hear directly from them
Okay.
on what their explanation is.
That's my biggest concern with that. And it's like,
You know, we've talked to them about trying to encourage more parking at the front runner station. We talked to them about Rainbow Gardens. We talked to them about
Okay.
the park and ride at the mouth of Woodley Canyon.
Yeah.
Taking advantage of that.
yes,
So
Olga
we
new
forward
interchange
to
at
change
Mountain
at Mountain Green.
that's a
But,
great idea.
those are all things we've talked to them about.
Yeah.
We did talk to them a little bit about the one at, over by the yacht club,
What?
doing.
What do they see as their demographics?
So they're concerned that most people that come up, that use Powder Mountain,
Uh-huh.
drive to Powder Mountain.
Okay.
And so the use of the automobile is key to them. And most of the time, they want to just capture them before they go up the hill. And so that's why they're requesting it there. Staff, is that the best area for it in staff's mind? No, there's other options that are better for that.
I guess it really depends on the demographic of people they're trying to capture, and what they think they wanna do afterwards, you know, what does a person wanna do? Do they wanna stay in the valley and eat dinner? Do they wanna, you know?
Yeah, well, there are some benefits of having it there as far as business,
Mhm.
because they're going to support the village center.
Mhm.
If they use that there,
Mhm.
they're going to go to the businesses and
It's walkable.
yeah, and so, that's a benefit for the village area. But as far as the automobile, they're still coming through the four-way intersection and, bringing that traffic to the valley, which we really don't want. And I think the Mountain Green going over that way is much better than going through the Ogden Canyon. Because we wanna, limit trips.
Except in a really bad storm, it's actually more dangerous to me.
Oh, it probably
Yeah,
is,
to go
because you
for
go faster where you're going slower through the
The
Ogden
winds
Canyon.
are insane.
Mhm.
The winds are really hard, and then so it makes everything ice. It's harder. So actually, 12th Street is very, very well maintained when it comes to snow.
Yeah.
But anyway, I do think that that's worth the discussion.
Definitely, and a lot of this, I would just bring up with the applicant, because
Okay.
we've talked to them immensely about this, but it'd be really good for you guys to
Okay, well,
have
that's good
that
to know.
discussion.
And I'm not off in right field somewhere.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Excuse me, did I take one of these?
Charlie, you're picking the box, bro. How are you?
There are, they don't want to make them lose. You know, so I have them, so I don't know how to tell you about them, no more, I think, but I guess, I mean, this is one. But other, this is far back. There's no page number. There's no page number, I just think. There's no pages. Those are pages 67, 67.
It's 5 o'clock. We call the last Weaver County, Ogden Valley version of the planning commission meeting order. Everybody is rise and join me with the pledge of allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight in attendance, we have Director Burton, Warburton, Froerer, Morgan, and Barber. Directors, Commissioners Wampler and Gross are not in attendance tonight. The agenda. We would like to do the first one last, the second one third, the third one that's listed, we'll do that first, and then the second one. So if I can have a motion on that.
So the change in the order in which the items are presented to the first being last, second being third, third being the first, and fourth being the second.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So tonight, all 4 items are legislative items, which means there will be public hearings, and we'll open and close for each item. During the public hearing for each item, you may come to the podium and make your comments. Please state your name, your address, and keep your comments limited to 2 minutes, please. Since this is the last meeting, and since we're in kind of an interesting time here, I'm curious, in the audience, are there any of the new elected officials for the Ogden Valley? Any of the 5? See one hand. We have 1 elected official. Do we have any of the folks that have been appointed to the new planning commission? No, none? Where? One, okay.
I didn't hear what you said.
Do we have anyone in attendance who's been appointed to the new Ogden Valley Planning Commission?
Me.
1, okay. Do we have anyone in attendance that's been appointed to the new combined Weaver County Planning Commission? Okay. All right, so with that, we'll begin the agenda. Director Grover, lead us to the first item.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, that first item will not be a public hearing. You may take some public comment when we get to that one. That's not a public hearing on that one. So on item that's on the agenda 1.3, this is a legislative item. And as you review this, you'll be making a recommendation to the legislative body. And as you review this, you're looking at elements in the general plan and how those things comply with that. You want to make sure that you open and close the public hearing with a motion and make sure that you give the public adequate time to give their comments. We do appreciate them coming. And on this one, we'll have the applicant present first, and then after the applicant presents to Ewert, we'll explain how it is or it's not complying with the requirements.
And for each item, I'll ask the commission if there are any conflicts before the discussion starts to clearly state that, and then
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. I appreciate your time and consideration of this matter. My name is Jason Boren. I am a family representative of the applicant. My father purchased this property up in Liberty, Utah in 1971. He's owned it for more than 50 years. My father was an English teacher in the Weber School District. He was the superintendent of the Weber District Schools, and then moved to Salt Lake City when he worked for the State Board of Education. My dad loved this property. He hand-built a log cabin on this property. It's become a family treasure that everyone has enjoyed. He has a huge posterity. I'm one of 9 children. He's got like more than 30, almost 40 grandchildren, all who would love to own a piece of this property and actually build a home, many of them, and live there. Due to his recent death in August of this year, I asked around and to see if we could get some change in zoning. And we are asking for a change in the zoning from AV3 to AV1 so that we can accomplish some of my father's dreams and purposes. I will have you note that this property used to be AV1. We were downgraded to AV3. If you look at the neighboring subdivisions, including directly adjacent to the west, Rulon Jones actually developed that property and it's AV1. The concept of the property just to the west, that development also has 2 ingress and egress that go from the family property over into that neighborhood. So you have inlets and outlets not only on 4100 North, but also over and through that neighborhood. There's neighborhoods to the south with that exact same zoning. This is not something that's going to put a strain on any of the infrastructure. The plan right now is to dig a well and the septic for each of the properties. It's within the town area that's been designated for Liberty. And the overall plan calls for higher density in those areas. This is not a crazy request for density. The land is perfect for this type of development. We're not asking for huge density, especially somewhere where there's risk for floods. There's no risk for floods here. It's not on a huge hill or slope where there's problems with development and down slope effects. This is flat land that is going to be perfect for additional development. If you saw the news this last week, it is anticipated that there's going to be 2 million extra people in Utah in the next 20 years. And, you know, I'm not in big favor of development, but this is something that we think is reasonable and it's a reasonable request. The staff has indicated they don't think this is going to be a problem in traffic. It's very minimal effect. And the as I can read the staff report, the only thing that this doesn't provide is transferable development rights. If you're going to deny the application, we would ask that you give us some guideposts that we can try and develop this into something where the family can use the property. I would like to say one other thing, and that is, I have a friend who I used to work with that worked for a developer, and he helped me submit this application. The application originally had some errors in it, and I apologize for that. That was through a miscommunication between that person and myself. So we originally had included another Boren family trust within the application. That's my error, but it was through that process, and I want to apologize for that. And again, we would simply request that the application be granted. This is very reasonable, and it puts guideposts on the property for the future. It's in a perfect location, and we would ask the commission to please adopt this zoning change and believe it will have minimal effect. Happy to address any questions if you'd like.
I don't have any questions now. Maybe some of the others do, but I may after the staff report.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Planning commissioners, last time. Let's make the most of it. As Mr. Bourne mentioned, this is a request for a rezone from the 83 zone, actually to the A1 zone, not the 81 zone, not the 81 zone, but and the property up there in that area was up until 1998 zoned A1, and then we had the big 1998 down zone, and properties thereafter had to be developed in accordance with the 3 acre zoning instead of the 1 acre zoning. Minimum lot size in 1 acre zoning is 40,000 square feet, almost or a little under an acre. Planners like round math, we're not engineers, we like the zeros instead of all the little calculations. So as you can see, if the rezone is granted, the zone map would change just a little bit. As you can see on the map here. I'll just show you the existing conditions of that area just based on the aerials. You've got you've got large lot developments on the north, the east, and the south on the other side of the power line. The ones to the north, they're fairly small lots, think about half-acre lots, but they're surrounded by open spaces, a cluster subdivision, and that development was granted bonus density. I think they got 1 or 2 extra lots based on it being a cluster subdivision. The subdivision to the east, you can see how many lots are in there, and then to the south, which you can't see on this screen, we're looking at lots that are about 2 to 2.5 acres. I think the smallest one is in the subdivision to the south is 1.5 acres. Just from a conceptual layout, this is the concept plan that they've submitted that they'd like to implement. You kind of see how it mirrors the property to the east, or pretty close to the mirrors the property to the east. And so in terms of compatibility, it's probably not highly incompatible. Probably find there's some good compatibility there. As far as the general plan goes, we do know that we've got these village areas planned, as the applicant had mentioned. The village center of Liberty is right there on that intersection, right next to the park. A portion of the front part of the property does overlap into that 1/4 mile radius. Again, the 1/4 mile radius is not a boundary for the village area. It is just a way to demark the general area where a village could be. Intention of the village area is to make sure that the travel time, or excuse me, the travel distance from the outside edge to the center is about a 1/4 of a mile. So you can see it's a little bit outside, a little bit inside of that radius there. As far as development goes, the general plan doesn't say that development belongs only inside the village areas. The general plan advocates for residential development to be configured on the periphery of these village areas as well, with the intention of kind of feathering out from your urbanized village to your rural area through transitions. So one question for you guys is, on this project is whether or not 1 acre lots here in this area provides that feathering out transition from what could be a rural, or excuse me, an urbanized area there in Liberty versus some of the larger agricultural lots in the area. Directly to the west of the property, you've got a larger agricultural lot. One of the challenges we have with Liberty is that we didn't get to small area planning in Liberty. We did that in the Nordic area, we did that in the Old Town and Newtown Eaton area, and we did a version of that in the Wolf Creek area with the developer who's doing development over there. But there hasn't been a lot of attention in this area just because there hasn't been a lot of requests for development opportunities. So it's hard to say what shape this village should take. Is this intended to be more of a residential village that has just a little bit more development on the inside, but maybe not more than half-acre lots? It's not served by sewer, and so it'd be hard to get smaller lots than half an acre over there because the lots are going to depend on septic systems or community drain systems. So I got a slide from one of the other projects. So support incompatibilities and potential incompatibilities. The biggest incompatibility, as the applicant mentioned, is it's an upzone. It's an increase of about 3 times the amount of density that they currently have in the AB3 zone, from approximately 10 lots to approximately 30 lots. If you look at that, the configuration of 3-acre lots, given the skinniness of the parcel, might make for some odd-shaped lots, but you could potentially get about 10 lots out of that property. Let's see. The other thing that the general plan does advocate for is cluster development. It's hard to say that 1-acre development, and it's hard to say that 3-acre development is cluster development. Both of them are the pre-core version of sprawl. 1-acre development is very much suburban sprawl. To be in a 1-acre subdivision, look around and say that this is a rural area. You look around in a 1-acre subdivision and it looks pretty suburban. And a lot of that comes down to how the infrastructure is designed. When you get into a development that's maxed out to 1 million acre for 3 acres, if they are maximizing their frontage on lots, the distances of your home are about the same side to side on the street, but you've got bigger backyards between the 83 and the A1 zone. So both versions give you an element of sprawl. The 83 is a lot further apart than the A1 zone, but it doesn't give you that open space preservation that clustering could potentially give you as well. So as far as rezone considerations go, this is what the ordinance says it should be considered. As a legislative item, there's not a mandatory requirement for all of these to be applicable. It is a requirement for them to be considered. And so as you look at the staff report, you can see some of the input that I gave you guys on each of these items, but you've got compatibility with the general plan, compatibility with the overall characteristics of the area, adequacy of facilities, and whether or not the rezone will substantially degrade sensitive lands or ecological resources, and what are the transportation opportunities. As far as vehicle trips go, 4100 North will need to be improved, but not significantly improved. You can see how the existing subdivisions that are similar out in that area don't have a significant amount of turn lane requirements or anything like that. So we would expect a little bit more asphalt on 4100, maybe to reflect a little bit more of what the county installed a little bit to the east with the connection to Fairways Drive. But another thing that is a potential community betterment, this isn't something the applicant is offering, but something that I always try and look for, regardless of whether or not we're recommending approval or denial, like what could happen here. I'm a big pathways guy. I know there are a lot of pathways and trails people in the valley, and one really cool opportunity. All 3 items on the agenda tonight have for the community or potential opportunity for the community is to get a great multi-use paved pathway along that Rocky Mountain Power Corridor. And not to say that this developer should be responsible for most of it, but maybe this developer can be responsible for a big chunk of it, at least in that area. If that is reasonable enough or equivalent enough investment in the community to offset the impact of having the extra density. We would also expect them to put a pathway out in the front along 4100 as well. The new pathway on 4100 Fairways Drive that's on the north side of the road is intended to come down to the bridge. You see the bridge is designed for a pathway on the north side of the road. And then west of that bridge, where the North Fork is, somewhere between that and the park, that pathway is intended to come to the south side of the road. So just a couple things to think about. As far as, let's talk a little bit about septic systems and wells. There is see my mouse here. There is a new community well right there underneath where that arrow is. I have not been successful at getting the drinking water source protection zones for that well. Those are required when the system goes in to be reported to the Division of Water Quality. Water Quality then usually sends it back to us in a shake pump on that. I haven't been able to get access to that yet. Reason I'm bringing that up is because if any part of the property is in zone 1 or zone 2, septic systems won't be allowed, and the 1 acre idea fails, the 3 acre idea failed there. But if it's in zones 3 and 4, they could potentially get septic systems there. So just something to think about. Doesn't mean that it should impact whether the zone is approved or not approved. If they can't get septic systems because they can't put the lots there, then they don't have that development in that. So that's a really easy answer when it comes to sewer and water. Is if they don't get access to it, they don't get to develop it in space, open space. So big considerations: transferable development rights, improvements to 4100 and pathway improvements are the main things that I've identified as considerations and opportunities. Looking at findings. All right, this is a copy and paste from a different presentation. So as far as the findings go, I think I've captured most of those. I think it's a pretty easy denial of the rezone because of the upzone challenge. But you know, if the benefits outweigh the risks, then feel free to make a recommendation for approval. You got those two options because we don't have any more meetings, so you can't table it. So, any questions for me on that?
The well you mentioned it's down on adjacent property belongs to Nordic Water.
The new, Nordic, I forget what the name, it's not Nordic Mountain Water, but it's, Nordic Village, I think is what they call it, water sewer improvement district.
And your summary and background, the second paragraph talks about proposals increases residential density without using fee or clustering or preservation tools.
Is your microphone on?
No. Maybe.
No.
Not on.
There you go.
That's the.
Oh, yeah. Okay, second paragraph on the summary and background. You put here. Says the Ogden Valley General Plan has a strong recommendation against increasing density unless doing so advances other planned goals in a substantial way. So as you've been making this presentation, I pictured in my mind, you're dropping the pebble in the water and the rings go out, the density decreases as the rings go out. If we didn't know anything else other than your quarter-mile radius, we'd say, okay, this ought to be probably more dense than 3 acres if we were starting with a clean sheet of paper. Is that correct?
I think so. If we're just looking at it from a village center out, we probably look at that as favorably.
And that is one of the goals of the general plan, is we're gonna have the more dense with the pebble rings going out. And it looks like, you've got, 1 acre zoning right adjacent to this property already. So. My question is, you say that this doesn't advance the general plan in a meaningful way if we did this rezone. But it seems to me that it is consistent with the plan if you do the rezone, because this is the picture you'd end up with if you had the clean sheet of paper to deal with.
I think that's a valid point, definitely a valid perspective on that policy.
You've listed some conditions at the end of the report to say this could work. This rezone could work under these conditions. One is that you use transferable development rights, which may or may not be required by the general plan because of what we just talked about. Okay, if it increases in a meaningful way, it's gonna look like what it's supposed to look like if you do the rezone. Okay. One of the conditions is, bury the power line. Okay, has that been done all along 4100 North?
I don't think it's been done yet. It is a requirement of development. Any new power line needs to be buried. One thing that the general plan does talk about is trying to beautify the corridors. And so it does talk about eliminating the overhead power lines throughout the valley when you can.
All right, so in my mind, it looks like this does, if we did the rezone, it would be consistent with the general plan in a meaningful way, and therefore could be allowed under the general plan, even though it increases density by 20 lots approximately.
I think it's a valid way to look at it. No problem. Any other thoughts, questions, ideas?
Charlie, question regarding. Liberty. There's been no real work on a circle drawn back 10 years ago, is that correct?
That's correct, other than the circle and the village ideals or standards that are written in the general plan.
So then we know from recent work in the Eden area where there are 2 villages that have had a lot more attention and scrutiny. When you draw the circle, that's not really necessarily where the village will end up. Right. After the work is done and the public gets to say what they say and landowners and so forth. So we're at this point, other than that circle that was drawn 10+ years ago, we don't know if there'll ever be a village center where that circle sits to. That to me, that's because we just don't know. And as the new incorporation rules forward, those are the challenges they'll have.
That's right. Okay. And whether or not they even want this to be a village center is another question.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you elaborate a little more on the septic and the water access to this property?
Yeah, so we had some discussions, I think, in a few work sessions ago, where we were talking about some of the drinking water source protection requirements. That conversation was applicable to the Ogden City wells, but it still is valid here. A drinking water source, a community drinking water source, is the area that surrounds that well and Zone 1, anything within 100 feet of that. Zone 2 is anything within, I can't remember what exactly the time frame is, but it's like a few hundred days groundwater travel. Zone 3 is further out, Zone 4 is even further out than that. And both the state law and the county code are pretty clear that septic systems are too much of a source contaminant to be allowed in Zone 1 or Zone 2. The theory, the science behind it is by the time that effluent gets into that drinking water, it hasn't gone through enough filter to be drinkable. So if there is any part of zone 1 or zone 2 of Nordics, um. Source protection areas, then, and it overlaps onto this property, where those source protection areas overlap, they won't be able to install a septic system. That doesn't mean that they can't reconfigure. Maybe they have a way of, I mean, you put a house in zone 2, you just can't put the septic and drain field in zone 2. So, still has some possibilities. Just taking a look at the different source water protection zone rings on existing wells that are in the area, aside from this one. It looks like a lot of it kind of runs a little bit north-south. But I'm just speculating. I can tell you exactly how this one's going to be shaped. But we'll see it from the images.
And a rezone does not guarantee a subdivision.
That's correct. That's actually a really important point. We're just setting up the opportunity for them to ask to do a subdivision. They still have to go through all the hoops to satisfy the requirements of.
There's no water, there's no sewer, there are no lots.
Yep.
There's no
Subdivision doesn't get approved without water and sewer, or water and septic, or whatever it is. We've been finding a lot of developers, because we have a requirement for actual wet water. A lot of developers don't want to dig individual wells. This would be 30 individual wells, or 28, whatever the number is. They opt for the shared well option. It's just cheaper to do. And so they could, I would imagine this developer would probably want to do that, share that well with that subdivision. When that well, if it is proposed, when it is proposed to go in, it'll go through a process with the state engineer to determine whether or not it will affect other wells in the area, variety of other tests before it gets approved. And so I would imagine they would probably have a single drinking water source that's not the full community source, it's more of a subdivision source here.
And with respect to the quarter-mile circle, the concept of the general plan is that there will be areas called nodes originally in the 2016 general plan, where the density would be more concentrated, and other areas where it would not be concentrated. Density from either areas would be moved for these nodes or villages to allow more open space out in farmers' field. Let's talk.
Yeah, that's what the plan is. It's cornerstone. It's a foundational cornerstone of the plan.
The quarter-mile circle is an arbitrary number of feet.
Yeah, there are a lot of people like to look at that quarter mile and say, this is the boundary of the village. If you look at the map itself, it has a very clear note that says this is not the boundary of the village. It is just intended to illustrate a quarter mile travel distance from the center of where that village could be. But I think to Commissioner Barber's point, maybe the village isn't right at that. Maybe it's a little bit that area. Won't know until that process is.
And the quarter-mile is basically between here and 26th Street.
Yeah.
600 good.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And so it was, the circles were indefinite other than to designate this will be an area of higher density that will look like the pebble in the fall.
That's right. That's right. During that general plan process, our consultants and staff, we tried to put together what's called a future land use map. And that future land use map puts more solid lines, more definitive lines on how to transition from those village areas and those urbanized areas out into the more rural areas. If you call up the Western Weaver General Plan, you can see their future land use map. So when we presented that to the public, it seemed like there were a lot of people who knew that they wanted development to be moved, but they really want it moved away from where they live and moved over to where that place is over there. But that place over there has people who don't want it there either. They want it to go there. So it was really hard for the community to really invest in the future land use map. So we took a step back from the future land use map. We said those are questions that are gonna have to remain questions throughout the development process whenever somebody asks for a rezone. And let's live in a more simplified map, and that's where the village map came from.
So what I'm thinking in my mind is, from a planning perspective, we have these areas identified that will be higher density. We've got 1 acre lots right next door that I think are farther away from the village center than this 3 acre parcel. It's gonna look kind of funny if we've got density surrounding this parcel that is 3 acres. From planning perspective, it seems inappropriate to consider this for 1 acre to match what's around. That's,
I would agree. I would agree with that assessment.
Any other questions, up here? No? Okay, so this is.
I have a quick question. So the adjoining lots, what's their source of water and so?
My understanding is it's wells and septic systems on the adjoining lots. Yeah, we have heard from both Liberty and Even Water Works. They both made it very clear that they're not going to serve this subdivision. And in response to that, the applicant said, we're just going to go for wells and septic systems. That seems to be what others are doing.
As Director Grover said, this is, it doesn't call for a public hearing, but we will, if we get a motion up here and.
This one does call for a water.
This one, yeah, okay, so let's take this to the public hearing, if we can have a motion to do that. Is
And move to a public hearing?
there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so when you come to the podium, please state your name, where you live, and keep it for 2 minutes, please.
My name is Kevin Carson. I live on 3462 East, 4103 North. So I'd like to just basically address the concept of the general plan. The main concept, the community main concept, was for no more density, no increase of density. If there was an area where density was to be increased, it was to be done so through transfer of development rights. Rights taken from someplace else that would now in the future be open space, then moved to another space to receive those. Not to wave a magic wand and increase density. That's it.
Jeannie Wendell, I live on 3709 East, 3600 North in Liberty. The parcel that they're talking about, I live on 3600, which is the south part. We are on 2.5 acre lots. They are shared wells. We are septic. They, against our wishes, they did approve that big 2,000-foot well that's supposed to help supply water for Nordic and their development that's going on. We are in the process weekly of monitoring with our wells to make sure we have a history to show if there is a dramatic decrease, because when that well starts, it hasn't started yet. So we're already up against that big sucking of that water, and it may make that the wells won't recharge as well. And so anyway, we're in limbo right now waiting for that big part to go. So if you're adding more sewer or more septic, I mean, whatever, water, wells and all that kind of stuff, I think that it's not a good idea.
Thanks for having us here to speak our minds on this. My name's Eric Rex. I'm at 3843 North, 3775 East, just east of the parcel we're talking about. A couple of points that I wanted to talk about was the slope considerations. They said it was relatively flat. That's not the case for the whole space. The first part on the north end is flat, but then below that, going south, it does get quite a bit of slope. So that's that needs to be investigated. I don't know how this development might change the water drainage and so forth. So that's a consideration. The main point I want to talk about is the big picture. You know, we incorporated as a community mainly because we are not, as a community, okay with the amount of development happening. And let's address that gigantic elephant in the room. It is the case. And so I think a lot of my neighbors are here because we're not okay with this amount of development. And think about the fact that once green space is gone and it's developed, there's no clawing it back. There's no taking people out of these houses and getting that green space back. So as a community that wants to identify as a rural community, green space is gone, it's gone. And I want us to think about that carefully. This is why we live here, why people want to move here. We need to balance that. And so I want us to take a pause and think about that before making any decisions. Infrastructure improvements, I think we're going to be negotiating here. I know these people, they want to, do something with this land. That's fine, it's their land. And so they have a right to kind of push it in the way they want to, but there got to be some negotiation. Clustering, spreading, 1 acre, 3 acres, whatever it might be, this needs to be talked about, especially with us right there. This is open land behind us. It's going to change our entire dynamic. One last thing is the pathways. Just to let you guys know, pathways north-south are much more desirable than east-west. We want to go down to Valley Market on a path and not across the valley so much. So just a thought here. Thank you.
So I live at 3916 North, 3500 East. Kind of really near the corner of Liberty Park.
Could you state your name for the record?
Michael Wire. Sorry. For me, it's really the water. It's just like I just moved up there and bought that home recently, and it used to be a horse property. It came with 3.5 shares of irrigation water. I probably got access to about a half share this summer just because the pond was always dry. So, and that's just irrigation water. I don't have a well. I'm on Liberty irrigation, so that comes from them, but it's all affected. When the pond runs dry for the irrigation, that's less water that we have for the whole valley. And if everyone comes in and keeps building and building, and it just needs to be checked because they just built that a big well back there as well for the water for Newark. So thanks so much for putting this on so we can all be informed.
My name is Rosemary Hyde, and I live at 1549 29th Street. We own property up at 4607. I think it's called North Ogden Canyon Road or Ogden Canyon, North Ogden or the Ogden Divide Road. I don't know exactly. I'm nervous, so I forgot. But anyway, we've owned that property. My father bought it almost 70 years ago. And so we have 40 acres. It goes from Chicken Creek, curves down, and then comes back around. Just as the divide comes into the valley. So we've seen a lot of things happen over the years. I just feel that I need to be a representative. My dad loved that property and was a very big steward of the land, and have developing trails both there and in Ogden proper. And I just think that it's really important that we keep a really big, broad perspective of what it is we're after. And I wonder why we have a master plan if we then peck away at it and create different things. I think that there has been a vision of what was wanted up in that valley. It's a scoop, a bowl, We haven't really talked about traffic at all. That maybe has been addressed in other sessions. But being on our property, much of it is green space. We have a few cabins, but otherwise it's forest and fields. And I can't believe the traffic that comes down through there and how shocking it's been, especially these last few years. So I think that it's important that we keep in mind, how much can this beautiful little scoop of a valley handle water drainage, traffic, and what is the master plan? And are we holding true to what people have purchased that land for, which was country living and honoring deer? Thank you.
Just for folks' reference, that was exactly 2 minutes. So when you come to the podium, please keep it for that. Thank you.
2 minutes.
Miranda Menzies, 3807 North Uxbridge Trail. I'd like to honour the service of our commissioners, you guys sitting here, who've been through this for so long, and also our planning director and Portland Erickson. Thank you for your support to the planning process in Ogden Valley for so many years. I'd just like to remind the commissioners why this land was downzoned from AV1 to AV3 in 1998. That was because at that time, the decision was made that septic systems needed to be that much spaced out. It was a key reason. Mike Lowe and his associates from the Utah Geological Survey actually did the calculations. Those calculations have been repeated in the 2019 report about hydrogeology in the valley. And there they were seeking to get to a 6-acre average. So the 3-acre average was set because of the need to control the number of septic systems. I would feel differently about it if this proposal had come with enhanced septic, where there would have been treatment or some sort of centralized treatment for the subdivision. But what you've got now is however many that was, 10, 12 houses, all of which are going to have septic, their own individual septic systems, and be releasing that effluent immediately close to a community drinking water well. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. Not to mention the private wells on the road east-west at the south end of the property. So I would ask you to reconsider, please.
For the time to address you. My name is Cal Stevens. I was the first subdivision, a house built in the Willow Jones subdivision on 3775 East. I have a well because Willow promised that I could get Liberty Water when I bought that, and then found out that was not true. So I ended up putting in a well. And the presentation today sounds like they're a little bit concerned about how that proposed 1-acre subdivision is going to affect that new well for North Valley. What about all of us that live along that 3775 East subdivision that have wells and septics, and we're concerned enough about how polluted our wells are going to be was just what we've got, let alone add another whole layer of that going out higher than our elevation is. And what about our water? And how's it going to affect the depth of that water? All of a sudden, we've got all these other wells sucking water out of that. I'm very much opposed to reducing the size of the 1 acre as opposed to 3. I think if they want to develop, there's nothing that can stop them from trying to do the same thing, but 3 acres should be minimum. If it was subdivisions like ours, why everybody decided we need to do something and get a general plan in place to prevent this constant growing like this in smaller chunks and keep open land. And so I am very much opposed to this proposal. Thank you.
Good evening, Ron Gleason, Sunrise Drive in Eden. Just a quick question, the 2016 general plan, page 19, lists the zones that are usable within the Ogden Valley. A1 zone is not listed. The A1, A2, A3 zones are listed in the agricultural ordinance, they are used in Western Weaver. So my question is how can a rezone be done to a zone that doesn't exist? Thank you.
Okay, looks like that's it. Can I respond for less than 2 minutes?
In a minute.
Backwards.
So is that it for public comment? So
Move to close public comment.
all in favor? All right, now you may briefly.
Thank you, really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone's comments and concerns. Take them seriously. The one thing I would say is many, if not most of these concerns deal with what the development's going to look like, not the zoning. You can pass the zoning, but then we have to go through the whole development process. We have to lay out what the water's gonna look like, sewer, all of those other things, and that can be for another day. But I ask that you not punt this to the new government, that you actually approve this rezone. And then all of these comments can be dealt with studies and other things that are done. One other thing, but two other things, water. We have 94.5 shares of secondary water. There is a lot of water being used for farm. Secondly, open space. You've got the Liberty Park, you've got power corridor to the south. There is a lot of open space to offset that. Again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate all the neighbors up there. I have nothing against them. We just ask that we can use the property. It was zoned 1 acre. And we've been there since 1971. Thank you so much.
If the chair is ready, I'd like to make a motion.
Is there any discussion amongst?
You usually make a motion and then.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I move that to recommend denial to ZMA 2025-07, and I'd like to speak to that motion. We are here seeing this application under today's law. Today's law within the county and the one, Mr. Gleason's point is profound. I didn't even catch that. Thank you. A little embarrassed that I didn't catch that. However, the reason for my recommendation is that we don't approve this or disapprove this. We recommend to the county commission whether to approve or to deny. So my recommendation is to deny. And based on today's general plan, we do not have a master plan, we have a general plan. And in 1998, that's exactly right, the whole valley took a hit. It was a huge hit to go from 1 acre to 3 acres. I know several people that own big lots of land that took a hit because of that. I'm not gonna sit here today after years of being on the planning commission and my name being on the current general plan and recommend anything that goes against that plan. This would go against that plan. So that is why I'm recommending to do it.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Mr. Fortune for Portland. If A1 is not allowed in the valley, why is this proposal before us for A1?
It exists in the county. Is that right? It is a county, so.
It does exist in the county. I'll have to, unless Charlie or Rick has an answer, I can look up the zoning code really quick and look at the agricultural zones.
It's an easy answer. It exists in the county. And so any zone that exists in the county is available for someone to petition to be rezoned to. Whether or not they get that is very much based on whether or not the general plan would recommend it. Let me give you an example. Let's say that the A1 zone suits the need, and it complements the general plan really well, but the general plan doesn't say anything about the A1 zone. But the general plan would support it otherwise, then that'd be a situation where you would either create the A1 zone for the valley, or you would create some other kind of special tool to make implementation of the general plan easier.
As a, just to clarify, in the staff report, you stated that a condition for approval would be that the TDR has to apply.
Yeah, I think my recommendation was for denial, but approval could be supportable if transferable development rights were used. I think that was, yeah. Right.
I'd like to speak again. I want to make it clear that I do not consider myself or our job as planning commissioners to determine water rights or water availability. Water is highly, highly complex. And it involves the state and local entities, which are public entities and private entities. And so this is not why I am voting to deny. It certainly is a consideration, but I couldn't in good conscience only vote because of that. It's purely because it increases density, and that is a clear violation of the general plan and literally years of planning that. So I just want to be clear about that. I have great respect for water, very concerned about water. This is not about water to me.
My outlook on this is pretty clear in that the primary tenet of general plan and most folks who live in the valley's focus is not to upzone. And this is pure and blatant upzoning, which I checked and hasn't occurred since the general plan has been completed. So there's no way I could support this at this time. However, this is probably a perfect example of a parcel or a project that should be brought before the new incorporation at some point in time, once they figure out where or if there's going to be a density zone in the Liberty area. They may or may not be where it is. Once they get their transferable development rights code put in place, once they consider all those variables, then I could see this coming back before that incorporation. But at this point in time, I just can't see myself approving something that is so directly against the primary premise of the general plan.
I'd also like to say again that there is no punting here. That would almost be cruel to everybody involved. In my experience as a planning commissioner and board of adjustments member for the last 15 years or so, is that we stay germane to the issue and we make recommendations and or approvals and not approvals based on current code. That's law. So the general plan is law, even though it's general. So it's not about, and I agree with Commissioner Barber that you'll have every right to take this up with the new city.
If are there any other comments? If not, I'll call for a vote. Now, just to remind everyone, the motion was made to deny.
To recommend
denial. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion passes. We'll go on to the next item. Mr. Grover.
Thank you. Chair, this item begins legislative item. If you make a recommendation on this, it will go before the county commission. Just a reminder on this one, public hearing on this, so these open that public hearing. And the applicant will present first, and your data staff will present out.
Commissioner, could you Director Grover, could you please just explain, just introduce this item?
Oh, you bet. Yeah, so this is an application to amend the Wolf Creek Development Agreement as it applies to property located approximately 3301 North Wolf Creek Drive. The amendment will enable the creation of parks and ride, walk, and related uses to serve the Powder Mountain skiers.
Okay. And are we going to have the applicant present first?
Yes, the applicant will present first and then staff will present.
Good evening, and I think congratulations on your final hearing as a planning commission. My name is Bill Thompson with Powder Mountain, and I was sitting taking notes and listening attentively because I thought we had 3 more agenda items in front of us. So thanks for putting us a little bit earlier. If we could go to the second slide, please. I'll give a brief presentation, very brief, on the proposed plan that we introduced to stakeholders, key stakeholders in October, in early October, and then some changes that we made to that plan based on what we heard. So on the screen in front of you, and in hopefully the packet that you received, was the original plan that did the things that we think are important to do on this site and that we're asking to do, which is mainly provide a park and ride that supports the operation of the resort on the mountain, and that has some of the, I guess, safety net and some of the key attributes that are applicable to this particular property, including what we see as a keystone property of trails network and the possibility of hopefully connecting this piece to key location near the school and the Eden area. And then additionally, some recreation component on the left-hand side of the screen in the, if we go to the second slide. Thank you. Where you can see that we've added a trail that is enhanced of what trail that historically was there, and then some additional pieces of trail. But the key components, as you can see on this slide, which highlights with the circles and the notes in the packet, the changes that we made, we still achieve the density of the number of parking stalls. But we also moved those slightly to the east and further away from the residential subdivision to the west. We enhanced the size and the scope of the berming and the variety of planting along the berm, not only to soften and to make it look more interesting, but also to be a deterrent other than a fence for people to move outside of the property to keep people on that site. We introduced a little bit more open area near and adjacent to where the wetlands are, and then we reduced the scope of the buildings, made them slightly bigger based on comments that we heard that were supportive of that, and provided a more meaningful park and ride experience in terms of a place that you could go and get warm, shelter from weather, not be in an idling vehicle, and be in a place that had some dark sky compliant lighting. So this, between the first slide you saw and the second slide, if you wouldn't mind going to the last slide. Sorry, there's a nice visual of the enhancement of the various vegetation, particularly bushes that are really deterrent to try to walk through. And then lastly, if we go to the next one, there's 9 points of summary of what we heard from the members of the public who we feel are key stakeholders to this particular project. So 3 additional points I wanted to speak to is why now? Because I think there are other potential applications, whether it's tonight or that you'd heard recently, that they're facing an opportunity to be in front of the new community, new city that was created versus going through the board here. Well, because as I said to the stakeholders in October, this is the same plan that we would present to them. So to us, it's a timing and procedural. It's going to take a lot of time to work with UDOT to clean up the property from previous user groups, including other ownerships, to do the work necessary with our neighbors
in terms of what they may need, from a public utility standpoint. And some of the things that they brought up, that this project and this property would be key to be supportive of in terms of easements or rights. And so all of those things actually should happen now, and they take years of work. And so regardless of whether we ask the city or you, we're hoping that you're representative of the community there, and that this plan, in essence, would not change. We would be asking the same question, but we'd be delayed in asking that question. That's the first point. Then second, why here? This is a really key piece of what we think is long-term and short-term, a successful operation and relationship, not only of our resort, but our relationship with the community. Currently, we do have significant transit and park and ride that's operating adjacent to the Valley Market. We'd like to eliminate that use and put that use in a paved, very dimly lit, because we want it to be dark sky, but and safe location that's on a major highway that has great access, that's coordinated with UDOT, that provides this anchor of the relationship of the operations of the public resort and the community. And this does that, and this does that in a very clear way. It takes years of time to develop a transit system that works, and to develop a transit system that is efficient. And we already have that started, and then to be able to enhance that with UTA as well as our own system, that's what we should be doing now. Why does it work? Point 3, it works not only because of the ability for us to get more cars into transit and off of Highway 158 in the canyon, where it tends to be more problematic. It also works because plenty of studies have shown that getting people to travel the last distance in transit, as long as you're offering it in a certain way that's convenient and clean and warm, then people will participate in it. Where we heard really good comments from stakeholders saying, hey, we'd like to see more people getting on buses in Salt Lake or in Ogden and coming up to the resort. We would too. The proof is that doesn't necessarily work. We can get employees in those buses, and we will, but it's harder, much harder to get a paying customer in that transit. However, if we get them close to the destination and we have this safe, desirable place for them to gather and park and ride, it is a much higher and more successful experience that we can, and it's proven to work. So our ask tonight is that you consider this application as a positive recommendation, and I'd be happy to address. There's probably other questions that I might not have talked, but I wanted to make sure that I gave the time to you to ask me questions. So
I saw more public comment in written form on this item than I've seen in all the years I've been doing this. And other than an HOA that uses your upper parking lot and an employee, it wasn't positive. And there were a few themes within that. And one of the themes was, why not create your park and ride within the Mountain Green area and in the Ogden area? And I know, because I've discussed this with county staff, they've talked to you about this in the past, and they've given you specific locations. And in Mountain Green, there's a school that isn't used on the weekends that you could use, like they do in Park City for shuttling. So why not? Yes, it's a little further away, but why not keep the car traffic out of the valley? Why not keep the car traffic from having to go through that four-way stop? Why not create multiple park and ride locations, either at the mouth of Ogden Canyon or at the train station where county staff has recommended, or in Mountain Green, or include all of those locations to make it truly efficient and without bringing cars through the canyon?
So I think that that's a very reasonable ask, but if I go back to my previous statement, it's proven to not work. People don't want to take that transit, and I think your analysis point of
the example of the Park City, which I do like because it's a wonderful shared use of having not building a new parking lot, but using on the weekends, the school, the distance from that school to the resort is a bit probably actually less, but very comparable to where we're suggesting the park and ride go. That's why that does work. We're not busing people in Park City, whether it's to Park City Resort or to Deer Valley Resort in significant amounts on UTA or any other service. It just doesn't work. You'll also look at Little Cottonwood and Big Cottonwood. The parking lots there that are park and ride are at the base of the mountain. So you're only getting into that bus at the base of the mountain, similar to what we're suggesting going to the top. Even that isn't desirable enough to people that are guests or people that are visitors of the resort to use that. And that's why you see the significant traffic jams in that area. So that's why we want to get ahead of this before we ever have any traffic jams. And we have a very close and easy to access location. I wish that Americans were more used to and encouraging of using public transit. We just aren't as a society. It's not something we want to do.
Thank you. Presentation. And just so you know, this is a group thing that's going on here. This is the first time I read this and the idea, and I've been a little bit disassociated from planning the last, well, anyway. I had the exact same thought. As what they're talking about. So in our pre-meeting, I did bring it up and say, well, doesn't it make more sense? And you just answered that, but what you said earlier, you said it's proven not to work. So
From long distances.
yeah, so your proof comes from Park City and from other ski resorts, not necessarily that you tried this yourselves here.
Correct. No, we can look at ski resorts in the Western United States and different transit systems to look at the ridership and who rides and where they'll come from. You can look at UTA numbers. We have not tried significant busing other than, as I understand it, there is a UTA bus that anyone can ride right now that comes out of Ogden. That the ridership is, I think, nearly all employees. So
Okay,
That's not true. I watched that bus come and go and it's not all.
we have numbers on that. I don't know if they have numbers that I know the ridership of the UTA buses. I don't know if we have the employee versus of paying customer ridership, but we do have the UTA numbers.
So from my perspective, which may be different from everybody else, I almost hate to say this right now, but I was raised in California. And at one point I ran a bus company and I ran it out of Concord. And we took people from San Francisco and all different places, put them on a bus and took them up skiing. And did it on a regular basis. And we made a great living doing that. And so you're saying that that's just not possible here from the base of, because what it would do is right now, in my mind, if we keep having the cars come up, then we still have the car fumes and, you know, the pollution and all of that, and it may stop it a little bit, and I can see where people will feel a little safer and the parking lots at the Powder Mountain be a little less crowded and fewer accidents. I'm not one of these people that thinks that everyone's gonna die on that road. There's no evidence to support that, okay? But I do think that our congestion in the canyon is significant enough to say, let's start at least down there in next to Rainbow Gardens or somewhere in that area. And so really, we can't do that.
I think that's an exceptional point, and we can. It just hasn't been proven to be a successful deterrent for people when there is another closer option, whether it's the park and ride or up at the mountain to get people into cars. If we make the business decision to whether it's to start charging or that the parking lots are full at the mountain, then it can push people into being excited about using the park and ride. Also, if we make the park and ride because it's shorter and more desirable of an experience, then you are getting people in that, to use that service. To your point about getting people up to like Mammoth and Tahoe, those are great places that works because you're from an urban environment. People don't necessarily either have a car or maybe are experienced or have the right vehicle. To get to and it's a long drive. And so I think that's a great place. So if we were bringing in people from 4 hours away, 3 hours away, I think we could
from Vegas, so maybe we could be doing that. But when you're trying, it's just slightly too convenient to drive from Salt Lake or Ogden at this point. And so we're trying to alter that and get people into the parking lot.
So based on the numbers so far, because I've been around long enough to know that the current parking lot, that time was running out. And, you know, we increased the time, we knew that something else had to happen. This was back before you guys took over as Summit, even before Summit. What's the ridership? I mean, that parking lot seems to be full.
Sorry, the parking lot that we're using
Currently
next
using.
to Valley Market, the,
Do you max out on that every day?
we don't, we do have numbers, I'm sorry, I didn't think to prepare them for tonight, but, we have maxed out on that parking lot, but we don't, maybe, it's, I think it looks more full than it is, because it only, I would say a handful of days last winter that we maxed out on that.
Okay.
So if they get it during the presentation.
And you think you need the whole, all the area?
For parking, yes. So also a lot of time went into thinking about that and to making that, you know, experience really desirable. At first, we may phase it to see if the future parking is warranted, but when you look at that site and how it is best accessed and being able to get in there and have the bus pull in or multiple transit vehicles be taking access easily and have, you know, really close in proximity parking, we felt like that was the right number and the right area to create parking.
And this is gonna be a question for staff, but just one ingress and egress, that's a little scary to me.
Yeah, also, that is something that we spoke about with UDOT. And we would like them, and that is, I think, a condition or a recommended, I would recommend it, that in working with UDOT, they're going to have a preferred way of accessing ingress and egress for the site. And we'd like them to give the direction to say, this is what we'd like to see. Many things, but I'm not a traffic engineer. And so there are some complexities with the road there that they have taken into account, and they are going to make a recommendation on that they'd like to see. And so we'd like to use that guidance or that directive to what we have or what we do, which could be 2 accesses in the future or on egress when it ingress.
Be really wise, but again, I'm not an engineer either.
So I have a question of the smaller lot is not being maxed out. What are your thoughts on the use of this? Probably 6-8 times larger than that one, unless you make it mandatory.
So a couple things, we'd like to get more employees into the park and ride and into transit. And like to take them on at that location. Another thing is, we would like to see the business grow as the amount of acreage serviced by ski lifts grows, which we intend to do over the next few years. And so we believe the demand and the availability of terrain as it grows also requires therefore support.
Okay. Any other questions at this point before we hear from staff? Okay, thank you, staff.
Turning on and off, I think it's visible for step here, hopefully that will still be on. Fixes itself.
You get to push it forward.
Yeah, your muffler just on flow chart.
Stand with my legs, so.
Brooke did well at explaining exactly what it is that they're looking to do. I just wanted to make sure you guys walked through a few of the different considerations that I had walked through, and also point out a few other considerations that have been suggested both by members of the community and some of the planning commissioners to me. First off, this is a legislative decision, so there is no entitlement to an approval. This is very much a negotiation. So there's some opportunity to work back and forth with the applicant to find ways to help them get what they're hoping for, help the community what they're hoping for, or at least some compromise between the two, if that's even a desirable approach. My original thought when I was looking at this was that I was almost certainly going to recommend denial of the project on the basis of traffic concerns. But as I got thinking through the logistics of traffic a little bit more, denial of the project on the basis of traffic concerns isn't likely to stimulate them to move that parking into Ogden or Mount Green. It's more likely to stimulate them to find stay where they are, either in the Eden area, or find other places to park up at the top, which means that the traffic loading on the highway there in the four-way intersection, it sixes. It stays about the same. Whether this gets approved here or gets denied and Powder Mountain uses their existing facilities to figure this out. If there was a way to deny this and lead that to a result where they go to Rainbow Gardens or the mouth of Beaver Canyon or whatever it is, then I would certainly look at that as the preferred option. So looking at the project from that respect, really the big demand from the community is going to be traffic demand. I I anticipated that the 9 o'clock hour, 9 a.m. hour, and the 12:30 hour, you're going to have a great deal of cars coming and going to this property. I did talk with the applicant a little bit about access management. They did talk about their discussions with UDOT. And there may be a need for a desire for UDOT for them to get two accesses in and out so that they've got multiple places that people can turn left into the project. The left turn action is going to be the challenging action on that roadway as people from the Wolf Creek area or the resort as it is, or the new connection of North Ogden Divide, as they come down Highway 158, the conflict points will be where people are turning them. If the project is isolated to single access, my recommendation is that significant improvements go into intersection improvements. The volume of cars, the traffic study may warrant traffic control devices of some sort there. One of the things that you'll find in the staff recommendation is I try to look at what the need would be if a single access to the site was what came to fruition. And the need for a queuing lane, a left-hand queuing lane on Highway 158, you would need probably close to 1,000 feet, a quarter mile of a queuing lane. And in some cases, that still might not be enough. If it was divided up, that would be a little easier, get more people in at a faster rate. So one of my recommendations is that they put some significant investments into that highway, specifically into the width of the queuing lane, also turn lanes, right-hand turn lanes into the project from the north. Or, so the asterisks on that, either do that or work with UDOT to do the equivalent. And the reason why I did that is because UDOT doesn't have that legislative power that the county has. UDOT can't negotiate this way. UDOT can't ask for a greater amount than what is reasonable and necessary to mitigate just the traffic demand alone. Where we do right now with this opportunity is in that negotiation. So I figured if we put something a little bit stricter in there, that would compel the applicant and UDOT to work together to UDOT's betterment and to the community's betterment for that highway, ensuring there's enough financial resources to do whatever it is that UDOT wants them to do, whether it's go staff's direction or go a different direction. Another thing to think about for this project is the project that is next on the agenda, which is the proposal for the townhomes or condos across the street. If both of the projects are approved, we will need to work with UDOT and with both of those developers to make sure that where they access Highway 158 is a four-way intersection. You don't want those intersections to be offset. That could create a pretty dangerous situation. Especially if in that project, their road connects to Moose Hollow, because that would open that up to be essentially the new southern access of the Wolf Creek neighborhood. So you'd have Wolf Creek neighbors at the intersection, you'd have park and ride people at the intersection, you'd have people coming down at the intersection, and there need to be significant traffic enhancements and improvements that we need to do. I did have some sit-down conversations with a few of the neighbors in this development right here to the west. I think the biggest concern from an impact perspective from the people who live right next door is, the sights, the sounds, the smells that come out of the parking lot, as opposed to right now an open space area that has some outdoor storage on it. One of the neighbors invited me to come up and look at the property from their side of the line, because I had only seen it from the street side, the highway side. And I did walk the whole side and I went to the back part of the property. One of my recommendations, just my lead into explaining one of the recommendations, is that with the berm that Brooke mentioned, that the berm is built in a way so that you're standing in the backyard of one of those lots. You get the berm that goes up and it drops off enough on the other side that you can't see the parking. The site from those houses slopes down towards the highway. And so if we get that berm shape and the configuration done the right way, you could potentially at least mitigate the view shed problem from that neighborhood. Obviously, the view shed from the highway and for others who are passing by is still going to be challenging to mitigate. That leads to the next mitigation measure that can happen, landscape controls. Right now, the way the proposed development agreement is written would say that the landscape plan that's in the development agreement is the approved landscape plan. The landscape plan in the development agreement right now that's been proposed doesn't comply with the county's landscape and screening requirements that we have that we impose on commercial development. So we would want to say, look, that's a conceptual landscape plan, but you still have to comply with what the codes are now, which would include separations, like Rick has mentioned, the landscaping, berming, better screening, and trees. A concern that I have is a great sea of asphalt with very few trees in that community. Wintertime, yeah, you don't have any leaves on the trees, but summertime, empty lot that is just open and baking in the sun is as much of a visual eyesore as anything I can think of. So there are ways to dress that up with landscaping. Another thing to think about for this project is architectural standards. So they have submitted with their development application some design renderings of how they might want to design those buildings. And try and model them off after the old wolf barn that was there, which will help with the aesthetics of the project. Something that the applicant is requesting is a pad for outdoor storage. The 83 zone doesn't allow outdoor storage, and so if outdoor storage is allowed here, I'm sorry, the property is zone 83. So if outdoor storage is allowed here, it will need to be explicitly stated in the development agreement that it is a use that we are now allowing through the development agreement. But I wouldn't recommend that. The type of outdoor storage that's out there, my recommendation would be to have buildings large enough to house things on each side of those buildings, including buses. And whatnot. Let's see. I'm a trail guy. I like one of the comments on the last item that we want north south, not necessarily east west. I think it's a fantastic piece of public input because as we work with these developers and we have these negotiation abilities, we can look at north-south instead of east-west. I'm looking at east-west because we've got the power line corridor and we've got some plans that are already adopted that identify the power line corridor for the connection. Just imagining the potential we've got in the COBIG
ranch development. The approved concept plan has a trail along that power line corridor. The project that is just to the east, that was entitled, 10 or so years ago, it still is vested for 100 some odd single family dwellings. They've got open space that will run along that corridor as well. The project that is right across the street from these guys that you guys are going to talk about in this meeting, we're working with them to try and get some pathway in that corridor. If we had these incremental opportunities, it would be no time before the community has a complete super highway for 2 wheels and feet, which would be pretty great. We've got the as far as environmental concerns go, we've got the Wolf Creek that runs on the western edge of the project, right close to the property boundary. One thing that would be great for the community is to envision that Wolf Creek corridor with a pathway down that too, and there's where your north-south connections can happen. To the south and west, the property where you see this orange dashed line here, that is owned by the Water and Sewer District, and the property to the north is owned by the Water Sewer District as well. So there may be an opportunity to make a connection. This is River Drive in the corner. You can see that. There may be an opportunity to make a full connection from River Drive to the power corridor, and then connecting down to, was that Willow Drive or Willowbrook, which then connects into Highway 158 with a really beautiful circular pathway system that goes down Highway 158 as well. But that would require working with those landowners. I did have a conversation with Miranda about where their property line is, and apparently their property line is right at the toe of the hill. And so this blue line is not quite right on where that creek is. The creek is probably closer to that property line there. And so if their trails get to go in that area, they would actually need to go on the west side. Or just a trail that runs through the property here. And connects to Highway 158. Brooke mentioned potentially having an opportunity for those junior high school students to be able to get to the junior high a little bit easier rather than cutting through this. And I think that's a great opportunity. The other opportunity with this plus connection that's not in the power corridor is Nordic Village has the obligation through their PID agreement with the county that they will build a pathway that runs from their village down to multi-use 10-foot wide asphalt pathway from their village down to Highway 162. So the 2 existing, essentially River Drive. That would pick this up. This would pick it up, take it up to Wolf Creek. You have a really great opportunity to make some good connections there. I'm a big pathway guy because it gets people out. But that's not the only way to do that. There's been a lot of discussions amongst members of the community about the possibility of recreation grounds and getting a park. You guys have a couple of emails from some folks talking about maybe having that piece of property dedicated to the city as park space or to the park district as park space. We've also got Wolf Creek District is looking at some portion of that property there for potential expansion. So there's some really great opportunities for the community to get, whether it's recreation, park rec trails, or sewer expansion to better serve the community. There's some opportunities in this negotiation if it was passed that way. One thing that came up that I didn't address in my staff report came up after the fact was the concern, and Commissioner Warburton brought it up too, about idling cars, smog, stuff like that. That is going to be a concern. If people get up there to wait for the bus, they're not standing outside in the snow and the cold. They're sitting in their car with the heater on. A way to mitigate that would be for one of the buildings to be a little bit more like a mini lodge type experience. Maybe you get a coffee in there and you buy your tickets and you sit and wait for the bus to come in a community environment with plenty of enforcement from Powder Mountain on anti-idling. So then essentially we ask them to turn their cars off if we have a condition like that. So all said and done, there could be some greater benefits to the community than detriments.
However, the fact that it is just a parking lot is not lost on me, and that is very much not what rural community is. You know, the song about paving paradise, it's paving Eden. Probably a relationship there. But any questions for me on this? My recommendation is for approval overall with mitigating measures and community investments. And I didn't catch in my recommendation the anti-idling and the community gathering eating space, but I think that should be in there if you guys are considering recommending approval.
So Charlie, just past where the entrance is to the proposed parking lot, there's another left-hand turn to go to Patio Springs, and that's probably less than 1,000 feet from the entrance to the parking lot. So when you talk about congestion, if it waits you to get in for the parking lot and trying to get around to get back to Patio Springs, it's gonna be an issue.
I agree, and that is something that UDOT has brought to our attention. The distance between this entrance and that road is too close. They like to see things a little bit more spread out. That may be why they would ask for a second access and one primary access location. So, that could definitely be part of your recommendation. If you look at what staff has written in there, it's something that's pretty robust or as otherwise negotiated with UDOT.
You know, the idea of having a light is just nauseating to me.
I tried really hard not to say light in my presentation, but
But you did.
that's what a traffic control device is.
Yes, yes. Often hard to read between the lines. Thank you.
So Charlie, this parking lot idea has come up multiple times before. When did it start coming up? Do you know?
I mean, it's been years, but I think Paramount started asking in earnest a few years ago. I know when Steve Burton was here, he was working with them to try and figure out whether or not their existing development agreement would even allow it, or if there's another way that we could go through the process to approve it. So I'd say in earnest, the discussion has been happening for about 3 years, and then earnest, and then in seriousness for my knowledge, for about the last 6 or 7 months.
Any other questions before we go to a public hearing? Okay, I'll take a motion to open the public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing.
For a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, once again, tell us who you are, where you live, and keep it short, and please don't repeat yourself if somebody has already said exactly.
My name is Jan Fulmer. I'd like to thank you, and I'm going to sincerely miss meeting with you guys in the future because you won't be around. But thank you very much for what you've done. Number one, may I ask if there is a Marshall Blong in the audience? Okay, he didn't make it. I'll tell you why I was asking that in a minute. But number one, this is putting a parking lot in the densest populated area in the valley. We have developments that have been approved. You've got Eden Crossing, Kobe Branch, another one's coming up that's going to be across the street from this. And the population dramatically increases in this area in the wintertime because of all the short-term rentals. There's a serious safety issue here and traffic issue. I would like to note the mission of Weber County Planning, which is to support and protect the natural built environment in a responsible manner so that present and future generations have an opportunity for safe and healthy community. There are safety issues here with this 800 spot parking lot. When I went through the proposal, I also found it to be rather disingenuous. The carrot is they would put a little portion of a park, but at any time they can change their mind and take it away and then give $25,000 to the parks in Eden Valley. That just did not sit right with me. But Commissioner Barber, you had an excellent idea. Why not a park and drive over by, down by this.
Rainbow Gardens.
Right, okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't think of it. Yes, because most of the people that are coming to Powder Mountain are coming in from out of the valley. Not in the valley, we don't have that many people there. They're coming up from Salt Lake City, they're coming up the canyon, they're coming over Trappers. The reason I asked if Marshall Blom was here is he is from the Forest Service. Another option that has been put up, even going back to 2013 and 2021, was to use the port ramp parking area. What I have here is the master plan the Forest Service has for Pineview. It includes a massive expansion of the port ramp area. They could not do anything because it's been all dug up to put the water line in for the city of Ogden's water. I'm not making this up. May I please give you, there's a diagram in here of this master plan for Pineview. I'm sorry?
You have to wrap it up. You're well over 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I will give this to you. And if I just might add, this was mentioned when they had a very nice public meeting, but they said it was too long of a drive from the port ramp. But this is not in a residential area. It's not in a high traffic area. It is a far more safe, viable solution than putting an 800 spot parking lot in the highest density of the valley. Thank you.
My name is Sue Gingrich, and I live at 3509 Moose Hollow Drive, so I'm not Moose Hollow. It's no Moose. Putnam has 800 parking lot spaces. They can't even fill the ones by the Valley Market. I just don't get it. Sorry. They can't fill the parking lots, the spaces they have now. Why do they need this? They're privatizing the mountain. Why do they need extra spaces for people who are not going to be able to ski there? Less ski area. This is a ridiculous proposal. It's just ridiculous.
Good evening, my name is Christine Craven. I live at Moose Hollow, and I would have a really nice view of this asphalt parking lot and the bright lights that will be illuminating it until 9 o'clock at night or later when skiers come down from the mountain. I support what Jane Fulmer just mentioned. There would avoid UDOT having to make expensive feasibility studies, construction, widening the road, egress, exit, because the turnoff to what she just mentioned is already there. Furthermore, I've noticed since I lived at Moose Hollow, there's a lot of people that are reckless drivers. They fly in from out of state. They rent vehicles that are questionably maintained, especially brake lights. They don't know how to drive in snow. They usually drive up to Powder Mountain and they won't take the bus. So I strongly recommend that you deny this application for a rezone. Thank you.
So I'm Orville Peterson. I live at 3218 North, which is right across the street from what they want to put in. And just to second what she just said, that all this new traffic and all this development, I've lived at this address. It'll be 50 years in April. So it was Patio Springs Road in 1976 when we moved there, a little country lane. And now it is constant solid traffic. And one other thing that living there all these years, when we used to have winters with snowpacks that you can kind of count on, that was a watershed. In the spring, that whole field fills up with water. 2 years ago, when we had that big winter, and they just put in, pictures not up there, but they put in the Wolf Creek secondary water pond, you can see, which I live right across from. The snow melt that spring washed out the ditch, their pipes, the gate, everything going into their pond. I mean, if they don't realize what goes on out there in that field, they're gonna have a rude awakening there, but the traffic is constant. And like everybody or other people have mentioned, really now we gotta put up with exhaust and noise and people all night long. And the dark sky, where their lights are gonna work or not, I don't know, but and then I'll quit, but the owner of the property that they use right now behind the store has offered to sell them that property for parking. I don't know if they can increase or have any more than they have right now, but they could purchase that if they wanted. And so I'm against it, and thank you for your time.
I would just like to ask, once again, folks, keep the 2 minute time limit in mind.
I can do it in a minute.
There are people behind you.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't see it. Gary Fulmer, 3741 Red Hawk Circle. One thing I have not heard tonight is the effect on the four-way stop by the market with this much traffic coming out. If you're there, when Ski Mountain closes, there's quite a congestion there, so there has to be some consideration done on that intersection, and I would recommend that they move this whole parking area back down where the Forest Service is and not block that intersection, and definitely no stoplight. Thank you. My name is Doug Jackson. I live at 5431 Fraser's Image Food. Thank you for your time. I'd like to put some perspective into the amount of traffic and the amount of congestion that we can anticipate with an 800 vehicle facility. The Valley Market, which is the largest business by far in the valley, has 52 parking spaces. And at certain times of the day, it's impossible to get in and out of that market with the traffic and people lined up waiting to get out, crossing traffic, going in both directions. Consider 800 vehicles coming in and going out at various times of the day. It's astronomical and a complete bad idea. The number of lights that are going to be necessary for security purposes to light up 42 acres. Goodbye to our dark sky dissipation. There's no way we can have compliant lights in that area. And there's nothing uglier than a parking lot. It will spoil every view and be a blemish from every vista and every memory or photograph of Valley. Funny thing, you won't be able to see it from Powder Mountain. Importantly, this project has no significant benefit to the residents of Ogden Valley. To their credit, Powder introduced a very successful shuttle service for Valley neighborhoods. Powder has committed to continue this widely used service, especially popular with teens and the seniors. Since these shuttles serve Valley residents, as we've said and people have pointed out, this parking lot is obviously targeted to non-Valley residents while destroying the ambiance of our local community. And with all due respect to all the good things this commission's done for our valley, I think this project is offensive to the citizens of our new city and our new mayor and our new council. This proposed project will be a permanent fixture in our new city, negatively impacting our views, our traffic, and our lifestyle. No one ever assumed an area zoned AB3 would be 42 acres of asphalt. How this project is even a consideration without traffic and environmental studies or meaningful engagement with the community speaks to a significant lack of integrity. If Powder has any respect for Ogden Valley City, its newest neighbor, they would defer this project just a few weeks until they could work with the new city officials instead of trying to shove it down the throat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is John Gingrich and I live at 3509 Goose Hollow Ride. I really. It's hard to believe that this actually benefits city or new city. There's actually no real tax increase or tax benefit to the valley. Number two, which I think they forgot to, they neglected to mention, I'm sure you're aware, is that next year that Powder Mountain intends to privatize a huge portion of their property by taking away Sunrise and Coconut Canyon. So that means that almost half their season ticket holders will be gone. So we'll be sitting here looking at a empty parking lot that's lit and an eyesore for a community that doesn't really deserve it. Thank you.
Good evening. Been a while since I've walked down an aisle. My name is Don Spahn. I live at 3411 Trappers Court in Eden. And I'm here representing a fellow resident of Trappers Court in Wolf Creek. Janet Buer, asked me to read her memo of protest. And let you all know that she very much is opposed to this proposal. She provided this, and I'm going to read it. It shouldn't take very long at all. So bear with me. Summit's proposed amendment to the Wolf Creek Master Development Agreement, October 11, 2002, is a bad faith, 11th hour race to approve effort to turn AV3 zone land into a massive parking lot and vehicle maintenance facility close to the lowest form of built environmental possible. Didn't make sense to me either. This AV3 parcel was, from the beginning, predicated upon the density allowed for Trappers Ridge, which is well over a mile away, and the overall development of Wolf Creek Resort. The land cannot now be claimed for the worst possible use of rural land in Ogden Valley. An enormous parking lot.
Sir, I'm sorry, but that is your 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
2 minutes, sir.
I think we received that letter, so I've seen that letter.
Did you?
Yes.
All right, unfortunate. Because she makes a lot of good points.
Read it.
We read it.
Right.
We received all those letters.
Okay, and then I've got 2 minutes. And with those 2 minutes, I'm going to state that I had met.
1 minute, real quick.
Pardon?
So 1 minute.
Hang in there, Don. You got this, baby. Hang in there. Go.
Yeah.
Got it.
I do want to state that I know some of the people at Powder, and I've met with some of them regarding this project. I respect them. I have great admiration and respect for them, including Brooke and her companions there. This Brooke, I'll say to you directly, this is not personal, it's business. And I know you know that. But I have to say, I'm way opposed to this project. And my major concern right now is air pollution. And I don't like the fact that there's an open lawsuit on Summit's behalf. That is, Summit filed lawsuit against the Wolf Creek Master Association years ago, and that lawsuit is open. And what they tried to do in that lawsuit, or are trying to do, is to eliminate the Master Association by suing us and taking it to court. That's bullying. That's not the way you resolve a problem. I know, I see your phone. Sorry. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
My name is Ryan Crabtree. I live at 3235 North, 4975 East, directly adjacent to the closed Wolf Barn parking lot. I'm very concerned about the development agreement the applicant is attempting to process through tonight. While their staff report contains some suggestions received from the public, it is only a handshake, a narrative with no legal force. And the development agreement, which is the actual recorded contract, is shallow, contains almost no enforceable protections, contradicts zoning violates state code, and bypasses basic county requirements. I'm recommending you table this application because it is not legally ready for the review of for the following reasons. One, the proposed use violates AV rezoning and open space restrictions. A commercial parking lot and transit hub is not permitted to use in AV3. The parcel has also had its development rights removed through the 2002 TDR, preserving it as open space. Note specific codes are referenced in my email public comment, and you can refer to the specific codes. 2, required neighbor buffering is removed. All berm screening and landscaping are made conditional on obtaining irrigation water. If no water is secured, the applicant is not in default and has no obligation to install any buffering at all. This violates Weber County Code as well as Ogden Valley's landscape screening and design review standards. 3, required traffic safety and EDOT reviews are missing. This is an 800 stall lot feeding directly onto SR 158. Yet there is no traffic impact study, a basic requirement for a project of this scale. 4, the proposal conflicts with the Ogden Valley General Plan. The General Plan prioritizes valley floor open space, avoiding sprawl and protecting scenic corridors. Placing the valley's largest parking facility in long-designated open space directly conflicts with these policies. No wetlands, wildlife, or scenic corridor analysis have been completed, which county code requires before approval. 5, improper monetary provisions. The agreement lets the applicant change the back portion recreation open space land use in the future by donating $25,000 to OBSPA SA, which violates few other codes. In closing, Weber County Code 10225E, the Planning Commission has 2 months to obtain this information. There is no reason this process should be rushed. I respectfully urge you to table this item until complete lawful and enforceable agreement is submitted for you to review.
My name is Kyle Tolman. My family and I live on the property that directly borders the proposed development. I have written an email and I also have some printed copies available for the Ogden Valley Planning Commission staff and recorder to enter them into the record of this meeting. This application as written is not in the best interest of the community, and many of the assurances made by the applicant are not contractually binding. There is no enforceable mechanism requiring the applicant to follow through on promised mitigations. Combined with major procedural issues, this makes it impossible to understand the true long-term impact of a high-intensity commercial project being introduced into a low-intensity agricultural zone. First, the application was not filed according to county deadlines. The original submission missed the October filing deadline. Fees weren't paid, and a second application was filed the same day the public notice went out. Second, this proposal was effectively a rezoning action. The commercial offsite parking lot and transit facility is a permitted use found in the Ogden Valley Destination and Recreation Resort Zone DRR-1, which should be the zoning district for the standard of review. The application seeks to convert low-intensity agricultural land restricted by a long-standing development agreement into a commercial resort parking and transit hub. Under Utah Code and Weber County Code, that requires the full process for a general plan or land use ordinance amendment. That process has not been followed. Third, the application is incomplete.
There's no traffic impact study, no stormwater plan, no noise study, no emergency services review, and no water sewer provider confirmations. None of the required documentation for a project of this scale has been submitted. These studies are either required for the code or can be requested by the Ogden Valley Planning Commission to better fully understand the impacts of this application. Fourth, this proposal contradicts the 2002 transfer of development rights in the zoning development agreement. That agreement removed development entitlements from this parcel for the purpose of preserving open space. A resort-style commercial parking lot is not open space, and approving it now would fundamentally violate the expectations created by that agreement and relied upon for more than 2 decades. In closing, I support tabling this also because I fear that denying this application will still get to the commissioners and they may push it through. Thank you.
You can't table it.
Can't table it. Move off.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Pendleton and I am with Ogden City Economic Development. So, it's snowing, everyone's excited for ski season. I know I certainly am, and so many other people are too, as ski resorts like Powder Mountain are making more and more investments. We know that we're going to see, more and more people excited to come to this region and ski. When we first met with the Powder Mountain team to learn their goals and their vision for the ski resort, they didn't come in telling us what they were going to do. They were going to overdevelop or privatize. They really asked a lot of questions, thoughtful questions, and really listened. They expressed their desire to ensure the mountain was not just for homeowners and pass holders, but also for all of their residents to be sure that it stays public, usable, welcoming, and safe. Right now, winter congestion on the road to the mountain is a real barrier for residents, workers, visitors, anyone who is predictable and reliant depending on travel patterns. This project creates a much needed transportation and staging hub that reduces backups, organizes shuttle loading, and improves overall safety. It helps everyone who uses the corridor, not just Powder Mountain. Finally, we do appreciate that Powder Mountain responds to community feedback and incorporates meaningful changes. That collaborative approach is important to us as a regional partner. From an economic development perspective and from a safety perspective, we respectfully encourage your support. Thanks.
My name is Brady Ostrom. I live at 3167 North Jones Street, a neighborhood just directly west of the proposed parking lot. Just want to thank my neighbors and community members for all the due diligence they put into this issue and presenting that today. So I'm going to zoom out and just provide a personal perspective. I grew up in the Ogden Valley. As an adult, I moved away to Chicago, lived there for over a decade. All my kids were born there, and I wanted my kids to have the same experience I had growing up with the open spaces, the lake, the skiing. And I had the opportunity to move back a few years ago. And in the time that I was away, the valley has grown exponentially. There are houses everywhere that weren't there before. Yet the student enrollment of Snowcrest Junior High and Valley Elementary School are the same as when I attended them 30 years ago. So my plea to you is, as we are considering this, is that we think about the kids who live in the valley. When we were looking for a spot to build a home, we looked all over the valley and we chose this neighborhood because every time we went there, there were kids everywhere. It's one of the few neighborhoods where every single home is a full-time residence. And they're, like I said, a big child population. So I recommend that we do what's right for the children. I don't think having this parking lot right next to where a bunch of kids are out playing is the best option. And yeah, I'm against the parking lot.
I'm Rick Allen, I'm Brady and Kyle and Crabtree's neighbor. We revisited this in 2017. And I spoke at the City Planning Commission then, asking you to deny the recommendation to build this parking lot. Trails are great till they build them in your backyard. Then you have to deal with all the noise pollution, people chasing dogs, all that. A parking lot sounds like a great idea until you have to look at it every day, and literally it'll be right across the street from us. So I'm asking you to deny this once again, Because it brings no value to the people in any way, shape, or form, but other alternatives exist. So you mentioned the school, Skyview is right there, junior high, you have the elementary school, where you could park and bus in from there, they've done it in the past. You have alternatives, the Forest Service land. Why do you have to turn this open space, which partially is why we built our house up there in 2016? Why do you have to turn that into a parking lot? That's all I'm asking. Thanks.
Good evening, Ron Gleason, Sunrise Drive in Eden. Land use code and zoning matters. This is AV3. AV3 primary use, density low farm areas anticipated to be developed in the rural residential development pattern. Set up guidelines to continue agricultural pursuits, including keeping of farm animals, and direct orderly low density residential development in a continuing rural environment. Parking lot is one of them. Primary use, secondary use does support parking only to support the primary uses. According to zoning, this doesn't work. This isn't it. People talked about the parking lot lighting. There's approximately 150,000 square feet of pavement. The lighting ordinance allows 2 lumens per square foot. So that brings us up to approximately 250,000 lumens, which is the same as 250 100-watt light bulbs. Yes, they will be shielded, they will be pointed down, and yes, Powder Mountain did do a good job replacing their lighting up at the headquarters. So we'd see similar lighting, but you're still talking about the potential for a lot. They say they'll minimize it, but they could get up to 250 100-watt bulbs that are there. And also, we have to remember about the light curtain and all that. The lighting ordinance says an hour after business closes. So those lights would have to be off by 10 o'clock. And I hope that is supporting. It doesn't say when they come on, but that would be time they have to go off. If you decide to put this through, one thing I would ask is that the height of the lighting be less than any berming, which is there. So there's no potential for bleed over or anything into any accompanying neighborhoods. Thank you.
Carolyn Robertson at 344 Fuller Drive, and this is also for Lee Shishman at 3384 Fuller Drive. We are speaking on behalf of our many neighbors and friends in the Eden Hills community, and we are stockholders with stakes in this development agreement because we own property and our homes are directly west of the Wolf Barn area. And our daily lives, property rights, and our property values are and have been impacted by the use of this land in the Wolf Barn area. On the map, here the corner area that was designated as the pump track. And in the section 8, it said that Powder Mountain said they would apply for it in their DA, and it states that they'll use it as a recreational use and that the parties acknowledge that the portion of the Wolf Barn parcel designated in Exhibit E is currently used as a recreational cycling pump track, which will be improved and enhanced as part of the landscaping plan, which we are in agreement with as a park. But it also says if SMHG elects to change that recreational use for any reason, then they can donate the $25,000 to the Ogden Valley Park Service. And we believe this last statement in that sentence in item 8 gives SMHG great latitude to develop that area for any reason, as long as they donate to the Park Service area is too vague. And our option open to the Ogden Valley Planning Commission could be to make changes in the development agreement. And we would urge you to make such a change. Our recommendations would be no commercial development should be allowed on this back portion of Wolf Barn. 2, that SMHG should be required to maintain the back portion as either a park or as a recreational non-motorized cycling path, as they have stated. And that 3, such restrictions and usage should be specifically stated in the development. So thank you for considering those concerns.
Hi there, Tina Allred from Eden. I wouldn't be up here except I think I have some unique perspective on this. So I've been a professional driver since 2008, holding my CDL. And I was the transportation manager for Powder Mountain for a period of time. I was there when the transfer was made from running our own bus lines up and down the mountain to partnering with UTA to create that bus line. And I can tell you that at that time, when the buses would go to Rainbow Gardens, come up the canyon, and then they would pick up in the valley, oftentimes by the time they would get to Wolf Creek and Moose Hollow, they were full and they couldn't take any more passengers. Often they would have to send 2 buses, and even that didn't handle the capacity. Now, if the capacity has dropped since then, I can only attribute that to the increased prices of lift tickets and paid parking and stuff that's going on up there. So that makes the question, why would you need an 800 stall parking lot if the ridership has dropped that much since that time? The traffic in the morning going to Powder Mountain in this vicinity of this parking lot is crazy. Some things to consider is often early in the morning, they will do avalanche mitigation in that canyon, and they will close the canyon off so that you can't proceed up the canyon until they do that avalanche mitigation. The traffic backs up all the way down the road. And now with 4100 North coming in and teeing into that, you're already gonna have a traffic issue there. Talking about the anti-idling enforcement, it's not really feasible. I go to the airport a lot, they have an anti-idling that people are not gonna stand there and freeze. I'll close. It'd be ill-advised in my professional opinion to approve this. And the thing that you need to do if we're worried about traffic and idling in the valley is to have the people assemble at the bottom of the canyon, take the bus up. They will do it. It's proved in Little Cottonwood Canyon. That parking lot's always full when they do it all the time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eric Bryan. I live at 3428 Wolf Creek Drive. It's just north across the road. This proposed development. The one thing I'll say is that I think it'll probably be understated how dangerous this will be with people making left-hand turns. We live on the inside of that curve that's just above this. And the last time we had a good winter, we had 5 people drive through our fence coming down the hill and coming across. Not everybody owned up to it, but we found 5 holes in our fence the next morning. So I think that we're gonna see even more dangerous issues with people making left-hand turns with still traffic coming downhill. In addition to that, my house looks directly over this. We'll see a lit up parking lot, no matter if they've got low the dark skies compliant lighting whatsoever. So we can just all know that it's gonna be snow on the ground, so there's gonna be a lot of reflection. And through our area, there's quite a bit of fog that typically happens. So even though if it's not direct lighting, it's gonna light the place up like a snow globe in there. So that's what I have to say. You can say no on the development. Thank you.
Is there a motion to close public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is closed. All right. Jim, you said you had a motion on this matter?
I do. I move we forward a recommendation for denial to the county commission for file CDA 2025-11. An application to amend the Wolf Creek Development Agreement as it applies to property currently zoned 83, located at 3301 North Wolf Creek Road on Route 158, on the basis that the proposal is inconsistent with the Ogden Valley general plan, is incompatible with 83 zoning and would degrade the rural character, open space, and community values the plan is intended to protect. The motion to deny is based on the following specific findings. The property is zoned AV3, agricultural valley, 3-acre minimum, and lies outside any designated village center, resort master plan zone, or other high-intensity commercial mixed-use area as mapped in the general plan. The proposed use of an approximately 800 stall parking facility and bus repair facility, which constitutes a high-intensity use, substantially more intensive than typical agriculture or low-density residential uses permitted in 83. The general plan's community character vision explicitly describes the rural character of Ogden Valley as being defined by open view corridors, agricultural lands, dark skies, clean air, and water, abundant wildlife, and small villages in defined locations. The plan states that physical development should complement, not overwhelm, or compete with the rural character of the valley. By setting a large parking facility and bus operation outside these map centers, the proposal would undermine the plan's goal of concentrating development where infrastructure and appropriate land use designations exist. While the applicant suggests the park and ride will reduce traffic to the resort, the facility is located only 5 to 6 miles from the resort base, such that public will still enter the valley via existing corridors through Ogden Canyon, North Ogden Divide, Trappers Loop, and the Eden four-way intersection. And the proposal does not eliminate or reduce the number of vehicles entering Ogden Valley by these primary access points. The proposal will increase traffic congestion on Route 158 and may require another controlled intersections. The increased traffic, lighting, noise, and paved area associated with the 800 car lot and bus maintenance facility would degrade the rural open space, dark sky, agricultural, and small village character that the general plan looks to preserve. Because the proposed amendment and associated land use change is inconsistent with the adopted Ogden Valley general plan. Specifically, the community character vision, the land use strategy, and the map pattern of growth. It would represent a fundamental departure from the plan's purpose of protecting rural character and concentrating development in appropriate zones. The proposal would thereby overwhelm or compete with the rural character rather than complement.
I'd like to second the motion and speak to my second, if the chair will permit.
Yes.
Thank you. That was quite the motion. I don't think I've ever seen one so well written out. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the answers that I received in the beginning about the possibility that it could be better at the base, Rainbow Gardens, and then hear testimony of someone who was involved and has proof, if that proof is accurate, and remembering that there were not enough room, sometimes 2 buses to bring out. I think that people that own powder right now are smarter than this and can come up with something that does not harm the Ogden Valley the way this seems to, that will harm us in just traffic alone. And it's not our job. when we get, just so you know, and this will carry on to the new city. A planning commission job is not to look at everything, and this used to drive me nuts. I wanted to have all the reports together and everything done all at once before I even said yes or no. That's not our job, and that won't be the new city's job either, so please go easy on the people that are on the planning commission. Our job is to decide if this is rezone is a good use and fits within the general plan. The general plan becomes extremely important. So as we revisit that, please get involved. I don't like to recommend denial. I am absolutely a property rights person. But this just doesn't work. And I want it to be on the record, so when the county commissioners listen back to these votes, which they will, I want them to understand that this puts people in jeopardy. It does not create safety. I think what Ms. Fulmer came up with is a phenomenal idea down by the lake where no one's going to be using that in the winter anyway. I think that's a great idea. It still leaves congestion in the canyon, which I don't like. I think it should be down at the bottom of Trappers and at Rainbow Gardens. That's where I think it should be. But if it can't be there, then I think over by the lake is the best idea. So that would be, my motion is to recommend denial of this application and send you back to the table to come up with something better that doesn't harm us. This reminds me a little bit of Huntsville and how finally Huntsville said, you guys are using our roads and you're not paying anything. And they wouldn't come to the table and they wouldn't do anything for them. So they put up a little shack right in the middle of 100 South. And when you went down that road to get to the lake, you had to pay a fee. You had to pay another fee to get in the park. They said enough is enough. I don't see a way for us to protect ourselves in this circumstance. I think it's dangerous. I think it's reckless. And I think that there's clearly better options. And I think the people that own Powder Mountain were smart enough to come up with that.
Okay, we have a motion in great detail. We have a second.
In great detail.
So let's have a vote. All in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. And I'll just take 1 second to explain my vote. I'm a big fan of Powder Mountain. It's one of the reasons I live here. I've probably gone up and down that road probably more than anyone who works there in senior management. I've never had a problem myself. Obviously, I have a capable vehicle, but I have been on a Powder Mountain bus that has had its brakes failed. And I know that the big accidents and most of the serious injuries are big vehicles. Big vehicles on that road scare me. So I'm glad this denial happened, and I too hope that they can figure out a better way to achieve whatever their goals are. Rick, shall we move to the next item?
Sorry, make a comment.
Sure.
I don't think the general plan supports the idea that our valley be a staging area for the resort somewhere else. It's totally inconsistent.
Especially a resort that chose not to be a part of the city.
Thank you, Chair. So the next item is an application to rezone property to 8.6 acres. The planning offices are approximately 6 about sideways in the regulations. From Tammy's Portugal Valley, baby, zoning, number of pages, FR3 zoning. And this is another legislative article, and as you look at this, you'll be making a recommendation to the legislative body for the commission. This will also require a public hearing. You'll need to make a motion, to close the public hearing. And the applicant will be presented first, and then, after that, staff pieces.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so they couldn't hear you,
Oh.
Director, and it might have been just and
No, it's
people
fine.
were very quiet, but
Commissioner Barber, do you mind introducing the item? Since my mic's not working. Fine. Here it is. CMA 2025-6, an application to rezone approximately 10.66 acres of land located at approximately 3362 north, 5100 east, from the agricultural valley AB3 zone to the forest recreational zone FR3. The applicant here? Yeah, the applicant. Lights are working.
Thanks, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. First of all, I'd like to take a minute and thank everybody that's done this job over the years and the efforts put forth for that. I'd like to also thank the planning department. Charlie and his team do a great job and help us by Rick scheduling. Our goal tonight is to clearly demonstrate how our proposal aligns with the existing character, the established density patterns and the long-term vision for this portion of the Wolf Creek planning area, while also enhancing connectivity and improving overall planning outcomes for the community. Our project is strategically located in an area where similar build-out density properties already exist. Because of this, the development introduces little to no change in terms of character, scale, or intensity. Instead, complements what is already on the ground and strengthens the broader vision of how this area is intended to grow. The property is situated adjacent to or within proximity of areas already zoned F3, which provides a clear and relevant precedent for our request. Our proposed design falls well within the spirit of the intent of the F3 zone, maintaining appropriate layout patterns and preserving meaningful open space relationships that are consistent with the surrounding built environment. Our project does not stand alone. It supports and enhances several ongoing planning efforts in the surrounding area. The project provides logical extensions of roadways, trails, and utility patterns already in place. We've been delivered and coordinating our layout to ensure smooth transitions with existing developments. TDR credits are available and have already been identified as a viable tool to support the proposed density in this location. We have preliminary confirmation that the necessary credits can be secured. However, we are appropriately waiting for entitlement and zoning outcomes before formally executing a purchase agreement. This responsible sequencing aligns with county procedure and ensures the credits are used exactly as intended. The TDR framework was designed for situations like this, areas where increased density is appropriate based on surrounding development patterns and long-range planning goals. Our project fits cleanly within that intent, and the credits are effectively earmarked for transfer once approvals could be secured. We also believe that responsible planning requires collaboration. To that end, we are willing and prepared to work closely with neighboring landowners to align roadways, utilities, trail connections, and open space networks. Coordinated development helps Valley grow intentionally rather than parcel by parcel without a cohesive vision. This approach results in compatible density, high quality design, logical and efficient infrastructure extensions, and improved control measures that enhance safety for the area. In a summary,
No, I'm listening. I'm just.
I apologize if I'm making you laugh.
No, I'm laughing at me.
Okay,
I promise I am not laughing at you.
well,
Not even close. I take all these very seriously.
okay. In summary, this project fits the existing development pattern. It aligns with the F3 zoning precedent. It improves regional connectivity. enhances area plans through coordinated design, and supports long-term future growth and the vision of Ogden Valley. We appreciate your time and consideration and look forward to answering any of those questions you may have.
I have a couple quick questions. I took a look at your renderings and is some of this, of your project intended to be income modified, moderate income, workforce housing, that fits into any of that world?
Well, I think it could, depending on what we're just, as you know, we're looking for a rezone out of it. The subdivision and planning and design is still to follow. One thing I would like to point out is we're talking, our plat had design below the power lines. We want to keep everything above the power lines. So to answer that question, it could still be accomplished. But currently, we have not had those discussions yet.
And do you think that your units, which are kind of upslope, and you have a large parking lot down by the road in your renderings, do you think you have enough parking by the homes that are upslope that have very short driveways?
Actually, those driveways will all have 20-foot sections with 2-car garages where every unit would have the availability of 4 parking stalls, plus the additional parking in the areas of the, we're working with Rocky Mountain Power or whatever their company is these days for parking in those non-permanent type product.
And as a reference point, just as a reference point, in today's market, what would those units that you're going to build sell for?
I think it's to be determined, but they could start in the 400s on up to $600,000.
So I'm curious, how come you did not secure any TDRs or bring that up? Explain it to me, because you want to increase density.
Actually, I felt like I addressed that. We have them ready to go. We just have not secured them because we have the arrangement with a landowner in the area of Middle Fork, and we just haven't purchased them because we're not able to obtain.
You're waiting for the rezone. Unfortunate, because the rezone probably depends on if you have TDRs, and those are speculative anyway.
Yeah.
Based on what TDRs are supposed to do in the current general plan, it doesn't really fit the model. Although if you created a way to create open space somewhere else. There's ways to utilize property outside of the rezone where you can put more homes in something and create cluster subdivisions and so forth. Do not consider that.
Well, at this point, the AB3 is probably the limiting factor for us to make much plan past that. Meaning, what kind of density would that look like even further? A 3-acre lot in there is probably not something that could work.
So I'm curious, have you secured access in through adjoining properties development?
Those conversations have been had, and once again, they're attainable. They've been agreed to, but
They've been agreed to. You're gonna go on record saying that.
well, we have HOA at Moose Hollow. We have HOA on the ridge that
No, you don't.
that we've spoke to with the board, and I've spoke to them. So those are I guess for further discussion, but
Okay, well, I appreciate you answering that. Thank you.
yeah.
And I wasn't laughing at you, I promise.
Well,
I'm a little tired.
up, that's what I saw. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't, I promise. No reason to laugh at what you were doing.
Okay.
I don't think you need to have secured development plans before you can ask for release.
Yeah, it just looks bad.
Well,
Right, you're right, you don't.
Okay, shall we hear from staff?
I was walking up here like a teenager looking at my iPhone trying to cross the street. Sorry. Go. Okay. I think Mr. Scabby's done a pretty good job at explaining to you what the request is. Let me show you. So we've got. Actually, let's just take a look. If the rezone was granted, you can see the zone map on one side. Left side is today's zone map. The zone map on the right side would be tomorrow's zone map. Well, if it was granted today. The FR3 zone is contiguous with other FR. Their requested FR3 zone is contiguous with other FR3 zones in that area. This is the site layout Mr. Scott was talking about. The access to Highway 158 is proposed to be here. That's the access that I would want them to work with Powder Mountain on if Powder Mountain's project did ultimately get approved. But if it doesn't, then they just work with UDOT on the access. Up here, as you can see, and it looks like, as you guys know, they've proposed access into Moose Hollow and into the ridges. And the way that the development agreement and staff recommendation is written is if they don't secure that, they don't get the development. They might get the rezone, but it's a development agreement that sits without any action because they need that access. You guys have seen the architectural renderings. They've done a fair job at trying to stick to what the general plan asks for as far as architecture goes. The back could probably use a little bit of work, but you can see the different product designs from the front. See here. The question about the depth of those driveways, I had the same concern. I didn't have it in my recommendation to make sure that we have it in there that those are at least 20 feet deep. But if that's something that you want to have in your recommendation, please feel free to do so. The project is right outside, just like the other project we're looking at, right outside of a village area, the Wolf Creek Village area. Wolf Creek Village area is not as what's the word? Thank you. It's not as well defined as the Eden area, the Nordic area, the Old Town Eden area. And that's because those were very well defined with tree regulating plans. This is a result of just years worth of Wolf Creek planning and execution by the developers since Wolf Creek came to fruition back in the 80s or 70s or something like that. But, and so the result of that is where we are now. We know just to the north of the proposed property, Mr. Lewis has secured development rights and development agreement for a village core. There's some other village opportunities that are already happening up in that area. This project is not inside of that 40-mile area, and so it's not quite as easy to say this is a slam dunk thing for TDRs. It is outside of that area. And it might be outside the area far enough that it's outside of the transitionary area where you guys, the planning commission, are comfortable recommending approval. It is at the edge of some rural development right now. To the north of it, to the northeast of it, to the northwest of it, there is some higher density urbanized village type development that has occurred, but south and southeast, it's still very much large lot residential. So it's right at the edge. It's a policy decision for you guys. And sort of back to the conversation about the ripples when you toss a pebble in a pond. What level of ripple do you want this property to be in its proximity to that Wolf Creek core? Another thing to think about is a lot of the Wolf Creek core is a golf course. And so trying to figure out in the future what that defined core is. needs to take into consideration that, today's use, of a good portion of it is golf course fairway area. So there's some, supporting, compatibilities from the general plan, there's some incompatibilities, both. One of the reasons why general plans are general, it's a matter of fleshing out what is in the best interest of the community, while trying to keep to community character and stick with some design standards. Supporting compatibilities, the site is directly borders that higher density on the ridges. Additional higher density has been approved just to the north and is being built right now to the north of this project, north and west. It's Powder Canyon condos. The village at Wolf Creek PRUD is across the street from this on SR, across the street from SR. And that's got townhomes and very small single family lots in it. The area already tentatively reflects a village proximate area, but it is at the edge. And so there's where the road comes in, and there's where your discretion comes in on. Is this the right use for that edge? Does it shade the edge of that Wolf Creek area appropriately, or is the edge better where it currently is? Just cut it off at the back of rezone. Incompatibilities. When you get to the west, you've got larger, and south, you got larger acreage lots. Like I mentioned, the general plan does call for that gradual density transition, and without affecting buffering and setbacks, and good open space design, the project could breed as an intensity jump, being so close to the large lot residential that's next to the south. As far as development in that area goes, somebody mentioned, I think it was on the last project, the Powder Mountain project, we need to be mindful that you've got Kobe Branch, you've got this is Eden Landing, so you have Eagle Landing right next door, which was approved years back. There's still a development agreement, it just hasn't been developed yet. A number of smaller lot residential surrounded with kind of golf course development style open space. Let's see. Get down to the meat and potatoes, so stop boring you here. Originally, I was going to recommend denial of this project. That was before they were offering TDRs. The way the TDR thing works, I would agree, we want to make sure we've got something secured before we allow the development to happen. And so we would make the rezone, if it was recommended for approval, or if the county commission ultimately approves it, we would make it conditioned on and not effective until after they've proven that they've got access and that they've made those transfers.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
about that? Will the rezone run with the land or with the Ogden?
The rezone will run with the land, but one of my recommendations is that we need to have a clawback clause, a zone reversion clause in there.
So if the land is sold, then it reverts back to the prior zoning of 83.
It wouldn't be based on ownership in that case. It would be based on time and execution of duties. So if it gets to a certain time frame and that lapses, the zoning goes right back to the 83 zone. 83 goes away. What has been established is legal non-conforming. They have to come back to the new city to renegotiate further development property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And we could always put the development agreement that it runs with that specific developer. We have done some developments like that, only in Western Weaver that I'm aware of. They have only very unique developments where we had a high degree of confidence that the developer proposing the project could fulfill it, but we didn't have a high degree of confidence that they could offload it onto other developers that we worked on, that those other developers could fulfill it. So that is potential if you'd like to see something like that. So considerations increased, density increased by transfer development rights, landscaping above green stream corridors. There is a stream that runs through the property. It looks like it's an intrafleet stream. That's not shown on their site plan. They do need to provide a stream corridor setback of 50 feet on both sides of that stream. So we'll need to revisit their site plan. Rick mentioned that you've got their site plan shows, let's just go back into that. The condos or townhomes that are a little closer to Highway 158, suggesting that those will be north of the power line corridor. So there will need to be a scrambling of how it's laid out. The key points of the layout, in my opinion, is the connections to 158, Moose Hollow, and Ridges, assuming those two connections can actually be
Could you
made.
show us where the stream runs through?
Right through the middle of it.
Yeah,
So.
I want to say it's right in this area here.
So they would have to be 100, they need 100-foot corridor,
Total.
50 on either side.
50 on both sides, yes. Unless the engineering division determines that it is year-round stream, then it'd be 75. But the USGS maps so far show that as interval.
Question. I promise I read through all this. Brain's a little mushy right now.
It's a lot there, it's dense.
Yeah, so have we heard from water companies already?
We have
And there is a will serve desire or a no will serve desire?
no bill serve. So we've heard from Wolf Creek District, and we heard from Eden Waterworks, both of them from their attorneys have said that they're not interested in serving the property and they can't serve the property. So if a rezone is approved, the developer knows that they've got a little bit of a build battle to figure out where that's coming from. I think what Rick was trying to say, the rezone is that fundamental base where it's not, yes, you can go do this development, it's yes, you could pursue that development, you don't get it developed, they don't get it developed, he knows that if he doesn't have water source.
Well, it's expensive to go through a rezone. And so you sell a property that's not been rezoned for less, and money is not an issue for me, right? It's not an issue for any of us here. That's not our determination. But if you can get a rezone, even with all those challenges, you can sell the property for more. Okay, so, but that's none of our business. That's not why we approved this approved. We approved based on what that zoning will do to the land.
Right, in the community and its compliance with the general plan.
Okay,
You got it.
I just want to be clear on statute.
Okay. For street traffic mitigation, so especially if the project across the street does happen, new intersection, traffic control devices. They are the proposal to Moose Hollow and to the Ridges. I did walk the project, the property up by the Ridges. That's a pretty steep area. According to Google Earth, you could probably get it under 10% grade, but they will have to probably snake it around into the Howard Schmidt property to make that happen. We won't know until engineering design has actually considered the actual topography of the area. Where did I get to with you guys? So we got a question about degradation of the ecological resources and sensitive lands. The only thing that I could find was that stream corridor, so they would need to preserve that, like you mentioned. The traffic coming to, it would need to be UDOT requirements. We would want to see a turn lane, but not just that. We would want to see the existing pathway that is on Highway 158 moved back for the frontage of the property, or for the frontage of the, I guess it's UDOT property there, but for the frontage of Rocky Mountain Power property, we would want to see at least that portion of it moved back. As development happens along 158, that is something that the new city should pursue. The Tesla pathway is great, but it's still too close. So as you get developers coming in to have them rebuild it closer to the property, and they will need to if they build a right-hand turn lane anyway. We are asking for a pathway going through the power line corridor, or if it's not through the power line corridor, something that connects both sides. So if so, community power line corridor pathway can exist in the future. And water and sewer. Okay, so just taking a look at the general plan, the big challenge is going to be infrastructure lift for them. It's going to be water and sewer. General plan does say that and where development should go, where it should come from. It tells us where it should come from. I think we all know where that is. Where it should go is in these village areas, and there's a comma at the end of that sentence, and adjacent to infrastructure. So this has got some of those benefits being adjacent to existing infrastructure, but not all of them because the water and sewer is not there yet. So I think that's all I have for you guys. Do you have any questions for me?
Charlie, I read all the comments from this project, including the lawyer letters. Sort of, one in particular seemed to me pretty aggressive, a little more aggressive than ones I've read in the past. And you've read more than I have. Is that an accurate reflection of what I read?
Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock into those other than what they're actually saying. We're not interested in providing that service.
Perfect. Is the FR3, is that, the SDOs?
Yes, the STRs are allowed in the FR3 zone, and I think, we'll be honest, I think STRs are allowed either in the ridges or consolidated. So the projects that are right next door in the FR3.
But not the 83.
But the 83 does not allow STRs. So yeah, a rezone would expand the availability of short-term rentals in that area. Other questions?
If there aren't any other questions for Charlie right now, I'll take a motion to open the public hearing. Is there a second?
I would agree.
All in favor? Aye. Does anyone have any comment?
No,
Yeah.
slide 3. There you
Hi, my name's Eric Ryan. I live at 3428 Wolf Creek Drive, which is the long property line on the left-hand side of this slide that shows here. And so we have 3 acres on the end, and there was a lot of talk about it being adjacent to other high density or medium density properties. But we would lose is we would lose our adjacency to rural property of 3 acres, and we would be essentially an island of rural property that separated us from all the other rural properties that are going to go further to the south. In addition, you'll notice that hammerhead that goes there that will point headlights directly into my kitchen and living room, which would be lovely. And the other thing too is that stream. That stream approximately comes across that property line. You can see it just barely on the dotted lines. There's kind of a jog there. It would go out across there and then drop down along that bottom, the longer diagonal. So it goes through the core of that property as well. So there's a lot there that is probably not immediately obvious. The other thing too is that this is a corridor for wildlife as they kind of move their way up through the golf course and on up. We've seen moose go through this property. We've seen deer go through this property. So we would lose all of that. In addition to that, we'd kind of create a traffic issue there at the corner because you would have essentially a kind of an altered 4-way stop sort of there. And with the addition, with the possibility of the parking lot just 1,000 feet south of that would create even more issues. Already there's a lot of traffic issues with deer crossing in that area. So that would also become, and as I mentioned, we had 5 accidents just the last time we had decent snow here a few years ago, 5 coming through. So just the traffic will be significantly impact this. So I hope you deny or recommend against this. Thank you.
Good evening again, Christine Craven, 5063 Lakeview Drive. I'm in building 10 and I currently overlook a beautiful field that is a wildlife corridor and it's quite steep. And if people had walked it, they would know that there's groundwater percolating up and a bit of marshland on the property. There's cattails there and there are a lot of animals that use that corridor. I am vehemently against this application from an AV3 zone to an FR3 zone. Water is a critical and valuable resource in Ogden Valley. I believe a thorough wildlife and ecological review and an environmental impact statement needs to be done before this application is considered and moves forward. In addition, as has already been mentioned, the proposed TDR is the specified in the outline. As of today, is the main location and mention is limited. This subject property falls within the Wolf Creek Water and Sewer Improvement District, which is currently in litigation with other developers. All residents within this water district, myself included, are paying a special monthly fee for this ongoing litigation. There appears to be no resolution on this legal dispute on the horizon. To approve the rezoning to AV3 along with the proposed 110 unit townhouse would be reckless. Thirdly, there is the current reality of increased traffic on already overused Country Highway 158. There is a steady and increasing volume of cars, trucks, and heavy construction machine on this narrow 2-lane road due to ongoing construction projects on the bench and at Powder Mountain. Traffic will only dramatically increase should this rezone move forward along the Powder Mountain's 800-car parking lot.
And can we wrap up?
Yep, another key consideration is linking to a private road in Moose Hollow, and that is not desired or wanted by our community. In closing, due to ongoing water litigation, lack of a specified TDR, lack of a wildlife and ecological review and environmental impact statement by relevant state agencies, and lack of a traffic feasibility, I strongly recommend that this application to rezone is denied. Thank you.
Miranda Menzies, 3807 North Elkridge Trail, Eden. In this case, I believe I'm speaking as a member of the Board of Trustees of Wolf Creek Water and Sewer Improvement District. You guys have received a letter from our attorney pointing out that the applicant believes there is the potential for service. If we were to commit to that, the previous speaker just noted that we are in litigation because we have been unable to provide service to existing landowners within our district. And yet she incorrectly says that it's inside our district. It is not. This is outside of our district. Potential of us offering water or sewer service to this applicant is zero, while we have litigation and problems with the landowners who probably inside our district would ask how we would be offering anything outside when we haven't taken care of the problems inside our district. So all of those problems and our landowners inside our district have to be taken care of first. And I would like to say that for the benefit of our developers inside our district. That is not just the water, it is also the sewer. I am fully aware that this is absolutely slap dab across the road from the sewage treatment plant. However, that plant was sized specifically for 2,500 units, which is the build out capacity of the district boundaries. So that is why there is a 200 unit deferral for those units that we accepted from Shane Dunleavy and John Lewis's development of Eden Crossing and Kobe Ranch and Osprey Ranch. Those 200 units are deferred from within the districts until such time as it is fully possible to expand our sewage treatment plant. At this time, that is not possible. So with that in mind, please consider that the chances of us giving service of water or sewer is zero at this time. Thank you for your time.
I'm back, Sean Ewert, 3509 Moose Hollow Drive. Let's talk about untruths. Number one, it says this is the kind of development that we want in Eden. And I've been in this valley for 9 years, and nobody ever asked me what kind of development we wanted until last November, and we know how that turned out. So that's one. Number two, there has been no contact with the developer in Moose Hollow. So that's untrue. And the road that they want to access is a private road, and it's actually really a parking lot. It's not designed to be a through road. And I suspect that They probably haven't talked to the broader rich people either. Okay, so that's three. Also I wanna talk about is that we have a failed intersection at the valley. At the Valley Market. That needs to be addressed with something other than a traffic light. Because that would even make things worse. But I've seen a lot of development proposals. And this one looks like it was done by a fifth grader the night before it was due. Because first of all, he doesn't have the access to Lakeview Road. Getting access up to Moose Hollow Drive, that would be quite a undertaking, get to 10%. And so what he's proposing is just completely out of whack. Thank you very much.
Allred, Eden, I'm speaking on the capacity of the president of Eden Waterworks at this time. And there was a letter sent from our legal counsel. It was mailed on November 25th, certified mail. My understanding is it didn't arrive at the county until yesterday. So we had someone from the legal office run a copy over. And as of the time when I checked, when I left home, it was not entered into the Frontier system. So do you guys have a copy? Okay. I assume that you've read it. If you have, I don't need to go through everything. You haven't read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've read it.
You have read it. Okay, perfect. So the one thing that I want to get out before I say anything else is, and I don't need to tell you this, but just for everyone's benefit, the rezone is a privilege, not a right. It's not something you have to do. We have dominoing problems with water and sewer. This project is in our service area. However, because of the complications of litigation that we're also under from developers, we are unable to provide water to this, and that's not the only complication. Because of the litigation involved, we're unable to do anything in that area that would possibly make this a workable situation where they could use sewer. And so by you guys approving this rezone, you're just going to compound these problems. Everyone keeps saying that sewer and water shouldn't be considered in this, but I'm telling you, when you do these rezones, it compounds the problem that we're already in. If the applicant decides to pursue their own water on this property, because there are 2 wells existing on the property now, those wells are within 600 feet of one of our sources, and we would vigorously defend that. It's very likely, since they're up gradient of us, that if they drilled for wells there, it would affect our source. And so therefore we'd be in position to defend, yes. That's all I have now, but I do want to come back and talk to you as a citizen, and so I'll be back.
Good evening, Ron Gleason, Sunrise Drive, Eden, and I representing myself and my wife. One thing which hasn't been touched upon this evening, which I think is important, when you look at the outline of the plat, it shows a solid piece of land from the top to the bottom. But there's transmission lines that go across this property, and the GIS systems I look at say that Rocky Mountain Power owns the land underneath the transmission lines. So if they own that, what can it be used for? What type of agreements, if any, will they have to get? They do show 2 uses there. One is pickleball court and one is a boat and RV storage. Now, storage isn't allowed within FR3. No, sorry. Let's talk about FR3 zone, site development standards. 104-8-5, only 40% of the land can be used. Then there's a footnote that says 40% of each lot has to have open green space. I do not see that on the concept plan, and that is part of the FR3 code. So you need 40% of every lot to have green open space. Are they being met? I don't believe so. And when you look at 4 other FR3 zones, they're all within Wolf Creek boundaries. And the reason for that was they brought open space to get those FR3 zones. These people are not bringing open spaces. TDRs, we know there's not a TDR ordinance. So a couple of zones have wording that says they'll accept TDRs. FR3 is not. So if you approve this and say TDRs are allowed, then you're doing spot zoning. You're going in and making a specific clause in the development agreement for this one FR3 to allow TDRs. Spot zoning, something we always try to avoid and causes a lot of problems. Sewer we talked about, I'd like to just point out one thing, and that's FR3 says at this density, sewer is required. It's right there in the zoning code. Inconsistent information. Staff report states approximately 110 multifamily units. Development agreement 7.1.2, the owner anticipates developing 192 residential units. What is it? If the contract says 192, then that's what's gonna rule. And the last one I'm talking about, as far as the gradual change in density, you got the Walkers to the left, the Grants to the west, above the Walkers, and the Taylors to the east. So please, do the right thing. Send it back to this one more.
I'd like me to introduce myself again for the record. Tina Allred from Eden. I have a map to illustrate what he's talking about.
You know, the reason we ask for that is this gets transcribed and put in the minutes, so.
I got it. This is a screenshot from the GeoGizmo. And in that first map that Charlie showed you, it kind of misrepresents what we're talking about here. If you look at the map, sorry, let me get my copy out. The areas in orange are the areas we're talking about. Those are the properties that belong to the applicant. That yellow section in between those two pieces belongs to Rocky Mountain Power. If you look on the map, he's showing, again, the pickleball court, boat parking, and stuff right there. And so that's just not an accurate representation of what's happening here. Also, if you look at the red square or the red kind of trapezoid down there in the bottom right corner, that is where one of our wells is. That shows you the close proximity to this. So I would highly recommend that you don't approve this. It has a single family home on it. That resident will be displaced. It does belong to the applicant. He has the right to evict them, but it's a single family home on there now. And it is surrounded by single family homes. Directly adjacent, contiguous with it. The final point I'll make is in one of the legal actions that was brought by the citizens against Eden, against the county regarding Eden Crossing. It was determined in there that to have a claim, you have to be contiguous to the property. These residents are contiguous. Thank you.
I'll go real quick. Hi, I'm Valerie Walker. I own that property to the left of the property line. We do have 3 acres. My husband already spoke, but I'll be representing my children. We moved up here from Ogden when COVID happened because of the 3 acres. That's what we wanted. We wanted to get out of the city. We wanted to give them a place to run around and be kids. We had looked at the Wolf Creek development plan and we knew about the development across the street. We knew about Powder Canyon. This was not on our radar as a possibility. We knew that eventually there was a possibility with the 3 acre requirement that there may be up to 3 or 4 houses next door to us, but we did not plan for 110 or even 192. We can talk about sewer and water all day long. But this is outside of the village center. We have to think about things like sights, sounds, and smells that 110 individual people bring, let alone if they bring a family of 4 or overnight rentals, what that will do to our property that runs that whole line. In this, I didn't see the berms or the enhancement of vegetation to protect my property value. I have concerns of the degradation of wildlife, dark skies, and most importantly, my family's property value. We will lose the rural character of the open view, the clean air, the abundant wildlife. This does not complement, but overwhelms the valley's small village character, land use strategy, and fundamental rural character. Ultimately, changing the zoning would allow for the changing of the density, which we are strongly opposed to. I struggle to understand how this advances the Ogden Valley's goals in a meaningful way, and most importantly, why now? Thank you.
If there are no further comments, one more comment.
Jan Fulmer, Eden, Utah. I just want to back up to the safety issues again. And I know I've talked to Charlie about this. Here we are putting another high density, even just doing the rezone for high density, which by the way, all of the units can do short-term rentals because the county changed FR3. You used to have a conditional use permit to do a short-term rental, but then they changed it. Anything in FR3 can do a short-term rental. So now we've got more people doing short-term rentals. And in the winter, we have a lot of people that are here that are not from Utah. They're renting short-term rental units. They're not familiar with the area. I just want everyone to remember what happened when we have a disaster. And in this particular case, what happened, it wasn't an earthquake. It wasn't a rapid snowmelt to cause, flooding. It wasn't a fire. A major natural gas line broke right in the middle of SR 158. They immediately sent all the children home from school. The parents were called. Guess what? The parents could not get out because the road was blocked. They could not pick up their children. We have now created so much density in one area. We have got to take a step back and say, what are we going to do? If there was any type of emergency in the middle of the winter, when we had so many people here from naturally or usually out of state, you don't want to send them on the new road that connects to the North Ogden Divide. You don't want to send anybody over that road in the winter. So please, let's take a step back. Let's let the new city work with this. This area is far too dense and there are safety issues. Here.
Okay, with that, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Close the hearing is closed. Sure.
There's only 4 people here, do we all have to agree? What's the majority?
No, the majority would be 3.
Okay, so, all right.
You said you had a motion?
I do. I move that the Ogden Valley Planning Commission recommend denial of CMA 2025-06, an application requesting a rezone of approximately 10.66 acres located at 3362 North 5100 East from AB-3 to FR-3 based on the following findings. Inconsistency with the general plan. The 2016 Ogden Valley General Plan states that the valley's character is defined by rural open space, agricultural uses, low density residential areas, and compact village centers rather than dispersed suburban style density. The plan states that new development should complement and not overwhelm or compete with the rural character of the valley. And higher intensity residential should only occur within designated village centers or master plan resort areas, not on isolated parcels outside. The subject property is near but not within any defined village boundary and therefore does not qualify for higher residential density under the plan. Incompatibility with AB3 zoning intent. AB3 zoning exists to preserve agriculture, protect open lands, and maintain low density development patterns. Under AB3, the parcel would support a maximum of 3 dwelling units, 3 acres per dwelling. Rezoning to FR3, enabling 110 multifamily residential units, represents an increase of density more than 36 times the currently allowed density, which is fundamentally incompatible with the surrounding zoning purpose. Transfer of development rights, TDR not permitted. While density increases by a transfer of development rights may be contemplated by the general plan, this parcel is not located within a designated TDR receiving area under Weber County Code. Without eligibility as a receiving zone, the density proposed cannot be legally or procedurally achieved. The Weber County Commission has defined specific TDR receiving zones for conformance to the general plan. Growth pattern conflicts. The proposed density represents a significant departure from the planned development pattern, creating residential sprawl along Route 158 in an area not intended for urban or suburban level density. Allowing a large multi-family project in this location would establish precedent for scattered developments contrary to the general plan's goals for orderly, compact, and village-centered growth. Public interest and community character. The magnitude of the requested density increase would produce impacts on traffic, emergency services, water waste infrastructure, and rural landscape that have not been contemplated by the general plan. The proposal would materially erode the rural character protections that form the foundation of the village plan. In conclusion, based on these findings, the requested rezoning is inconsistent with the adopted Ogden Valley General Plan, incompatible with AB3 zoning intent, unqualified for TDR-based density, and does not represent orderly or appropriately located development. Therefore, I move to recommend denial of CMA 2025-06.
Second to that motion.
Second.
So we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay. Move on to our last item. Director Grover.
So this item is just for information gathering only. So on this, there will not be any decision made on this item. We will just be giving you a comment. The public hearing will be held on November 9th for this meeting. So I'm going to introduce this item. It's a request for the Froerer Family Investment for a public hearing. It's not a public hearing, it's just for discussion and possible recommendation regarding a development agreement to preserve development rights, timing of project development, and its overall project layout for approximately 19.3 acres located 700 south, 7900 east of Eden. And so you can take public comment on this if you would like, but it's not necessary. We'll relay your comments and any public comment to the new planning commission, who will hold a public hearing on December 9th. And you and the public is welcome to attend that meeting. Any questions?
So many.
talk to him.
No. I understand what we're doing. Okay. Do not expect that. When was that decision made?
That decision was made on November 24th because the notices were incorrect. So we weren't able to meet the notice deadline to have a public hearing on this meeting date, but we wanted to be able to have your input from the Ogden Valley Planning Commission to relate to the new Weaver County Planning Commission. So we were doing this to accommodate.
Okay. Commissioners, this is a pretty, it's a fairly simple request, I guess. The subject property is located at approximately 700 south, 7900 east. It's located in the agricultural Valley 3 zone and consists of a little over 19 acres. Under current zoning, the applicant would be entitled to 6 lots, which is what they're asking to preserve in this development agreement. When we look at their proposed lot layout, if they were to submit a subdivision application for this today, staff would likely recommend approval. They meet the minimum, if not exceed the minimum area and widths. And they are proposing a 60-foot wide right of way to allow for connectivity. Now, again, this is a legislative item. This is at the discretion of the Planning Commission. So to quickly go through, this is what the developer is asking for. They're looking to memorialize their development rights and have a 10-year term to be able to develop this, with an option to re-up it for 5 years at a time, up to 3 times. What they're offering is connectivity to the adjacent parcel to the east. And they're saying, their narrative states that extending the timelines for phasing allows for open space to remain there longer. That's pretty much the gist of what they're asking for. Any questions?
No, I don't have a problem with this.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the planning commissioners that we need to forward on?
Their outlook for water and sewer is just to do it individually on each one.
Yes.
No, I live from. Exactly. Okay.
Okay. That's all I have for you.
My only thought was why the 5 and 5 and 5? And that's clever. You want open space longer. But the reality is they just want to be able to preserve their rights to develop. So nice spin.
That is from the applicant, so
I get it.
I think this is for this is a small area for family in the future. Situation for one.
And we need family, and if they can provide lots that are inexpensive now through whomever, I think we've seen a lot of that in the building up to this changeover to the city. I think a lot of people want to preserve that, right? And I think that does work with the general. Be able to get some families up there and kids. My kids will, as it is right now, we've always wanted to do this. But we just haven't been able to afford the land anywhere. And so our kids will never, unless they really just like a thing and want to come back. It's not gonna, we'll have to have affordable housing, I get that. But affordable housing is not the same as living on a family compound. Which so many people have grown up doing that, and that's disappearing.
I think that's a big element of the general plan, is preserve the character.
Yeah.
Some look at that and they say, well, the character is building the general scope. But the real character is the family connectivity, generation to generation. Really isn't, I mean, that's the history of the valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And as much as people want to say that we should have bigger lots. Over the years, I've come up with my own term, and I think it's a term now, which is called rural blight. You know, if you have fields full of Dyer's Woad, how beautiful, I mean, it's beautiful, but how dangerous is that? How it kills the land? You know, or it's hard to take care of that much land. So what that does is it prices people out. And you're already seeing these beautiful estates being built where they can take care of all that land, but the average person cannot do that. And so we'll end up with weed-filled lots, or like the preserve where my sister lives. She has a second home there, and her backyard butts up against the open space, and he has no water for that subdivision, for that HOA, for that cluster. And it's dry weeding, you know, one batch, boom, that all goes up. Crazy. So having big lots is not always the ideal way either.
I will mention that the staff report for this is in your packet this evening, and so if anyone would like to forward comment to myself, my email address is in there, or they're welcome to reach out to any of the planning staff. The hearing for this will be held from tonight. So if you have any questions or concerns or anything you want me to forward on, please let me know.
Thank you.
That's great.
I don't have any comments on this. Any other comments on this? This topic, this problem, yes. Rick, that's. All right, so we can move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. Remarks from the planning commissioners, Commissioner Burton?
I'd just like to say. It's been a great privilege to serve on this commission with quality people, quality staff, addressing some tough public decisions. And I appreciate my fellow commissioners, appreciate staff, the hard work you put in, and I appreciate the opportunity given to me.
Oh, I have big emotions. Amazing people that we have gotten to work with, staff, Weaver County, things you put up with, things that you've done. For me personally, supporting me through the death of my daughter makes you family. It's been a privilege to serve. It's been a privilege to be a part of a team that so truly cares. We may all come from different ideals and have different ideas about what should happen. But the respectful way that I've at least been able to be a part of that meshing together. And I mean, Charlie has taken some hits. I have been so hard on him times, you know, I'm so nice to Tammy. I'm so hard on Charlie.
She deserves it.
And it's just been a pleasure, you know, I mean, I know your son, I know what you've done as you raised him and how bright and brilliant he is. And I love that Tammy knows the land and the earth. And I mean, it's been personal. And it broke my heart to watch what my tribe as a whole did. The last while. And I've apologized several times. Probably shouldn't have, but I did. Remind to apologize, but I am deeply grateful for how this has shaped my life. Good people I've gotten to know. That's it. That's all.
So I guess my parting comments, you do a little different. Certainly been a learning experience for me. I'm not sure how useful going forward all the nuances I've learned will be, but it's kind of in my head now, so I know more than I did 3 years ago. I am disappointed. You know, I didn't support the incorporation. I'm not a big fan of how everything's handled with the county. I'm secret there, and I wasn't a fan of the incorporation. I was deeply disappointed that those that have been elected haven't participated in this process more, because I know I had to learn when I was given this opportunity. They could have been along for the ride over the last 3 months, and most of them chose not to. I think only whatever one or two that have been elected showed up tonight. That disappointed me as a person who lives up there and pays a lot of taxes, and is, you know, they've got to do a job, and hopefully they will. There's going to be a new planning commission. I think one person showed up from that new planning commission. Good for that person. Not so good for the others who could have had a good opportunity to watch tonight. You know, it's not perfect sitting here, and I'm sure my words are just bouncing off the walls right now, but I had to learn over a period of time just by sitting and watching and listening. Those folks won't have that opportunity so much. And it's just too bad they couldn't have moved themselves down here for a few hours tonight. But thanks to Rick and all the staff for putting up with my questions and naivete at times and such. It's been interesting and definitely a learning experience for me. So thanks. Jim, newest guy?
Yeah. It's been great for me as well, even in the short period of time that I've been involved. I have a much better understanding what this do. Thank you.
Got one more thing to say, Mr. Chair. Those are some of the most detailed plans I've ever heard. Yeah. And I think they were awesome.
Yeah, that's why I was laughing. I'm like, I heard from her, but does he have that one written out too? And I said, no, I just came up with myself. I tried to do that in the very beginning, years and years and years ago when I started, but then I would get here and things would change, and I would have to change my, so I learned not to do that. So that was really good.
Well, thanks. I honestly enjoying that for what Jeff. So, yeah.
I appreciate Courtney. You reminded me how glad I am not sitting over there. I'd be tired. 7 years.
So back to you guys.
Well, I first just want to thank your families, because they're the ones that are supporting you, allowing you to serve. That's probably the biggest thank you I want to send out. It's not, I appreciate what you've done, but I appreciate your families for allowing you to serve. It takes a lot. You've been away from your families so many hours. I've seen that, and I would personally just like you to send my gratitude and our staff's gratitude to your significant others, your children, whoever that may be that has allowed you to serve in this capacity. Next, I would like to thank you for your time in service and for the thoughtful deliberation you guys have given. I know that you may not have agreed on a lot of things, but I appreciate your collaboration and coming to emotions. And it took a lot of time to sit here in these meetings and to go through all of this. So thank you for reading the packets beforehand and just taking the time and the investment that you're making into your community. Thank you, and I wish you all the best, and I wish the community all the best, and I hope it's a smooth transition.
Yes, I should have gone first, so you can be last. I've worked with the Ogden Planning Commission since I started here 10 years ago, and a lot of the same faces over the years, but a lot of different things to do, and it's always been a challenging but good experience. I appreciate your service and the chance I've had to get to know you. So thank you.
Thank you.
I remember when you first started.
Hey, found the gavel, that's done.
I don't think it was going to. I will, but well, we have to move to discuss. We're done.